Ladies and gentlemen, here he is. Woo! The sensation, Jason Gabon!
Danmark har fået en ny verdensmester. Mikkel Kessler. He's the fucking champion of the world. Mikkel, mate.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to the 119th edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. I'm Steve Wellings, returning for a second week in the hot seat, and Andy Patterson is actually back for the next show, so this week we're going to have a clean up a bit, I think, open the windows, run the hoover around and destroy the evidence from the last show. I'm joined this week by Adam Smith, by Alex Morris, Kurt Ward and Paul Webb is racing home as we speak to join the call. If you want to get stuck into us, then don't forget to add Boxing Asylum Pod onto Skype, and also don't forget to unmute your microphone if you do call in, as it helps to hear us, helps us to hear what you have to say. So the guys are all on board, and we're going to go through the fight reviews first of all, as we always do. And nobody seems particularly bothered about talking about this Anthony Joshua fight, so I think we'll start in Quebec, Canada, and the CBS card. And there was no surprises really in the main event, where Adonis Stevenson successfully defended his WBC light heavyweight title for the fifth time with a points victory over Sakio Bika. And Stevenson knocked Bika down twice en route to a unanimous decision victory by scores of 115, 111, 116, 110 and 115, 110 was handed to him by the judges. Kurt, I believe you saw this one. Pretty routine stuff for Stevenson. We never expected Bika to upset the odds, did we here?
No, I think it was more of a case of can Stevenson stop Bika and do what no one else has ever done. I mean, I give a lot of respect to Bika. He ain't got much talent, but he's got a lot of balls. He's so tough, and he's been in with absolutely everybody he could have been in with, and he always gives it his all. And Stevenson hurt him a few times. That left just couldn't miss basically. I mean, Bika came in the same way. He's slow. He plods forward. Doesn't have much of a defence. He gave it a go, and he took Stevenson 12 rounds. I mean, Stevenson was showbiting and stuff, but it wasn't that impressive performance. I don't think. I think he looked a bit tired again, like he did in the Fanfara fight for me. He was holding a bit, and Bika gave it all in his last round, trying to get him out there, but it was never going to happen. I mean, it's hard to say where Stevenson is going because his lack of options now. I mean, the Kovalev fight is there, but will he take it? People don't seem to think he will. But I've always thought Kovalev would win that fight, but with that speed and that left hand, I wouldn't rule Stevenson out with anybody, to be honest. I mean, that left hand is going to land against everyone, and it's just whether they can take it and whether they can, land on him first. And that Stevenson-Kovalev fight that won't go long, in my opinion. That's the fight that needs to happen now. But yeah, fair play to Bika. He gave his all. He was overmatched. Stevenson was just way too fast for him, too powerful, and hopefully now Stevenson can get in there with a better opponent.
Yeah, Adam, Sakio Bika's been around the block, hasn't he? Mostly at the lower weights. He's a really tough guy, but going into this fight, the only real point of interest was whether Stevenson, who we know is a big puncher, we know he's a fast guy, would he be able to stop Sakio Bika? There was nothing ever beyond that. That's how the fight transpired. Would he be able to stop him? There was never any chance of, like I said to Kurt, of Bika actually winning the fight. I mean, that's an uncompetitive matchup, isn't it?
Yeah, you're bang on. That's the only reason a lot of people paid any attention or tuned in was to see if he could knock him out, and obviously he failed to do so. But I think that firstly, I want to know how Bika managed to get a title shot at light heavy, his first foray into the light heavyweight division off the back of an unconvincing loss and a couple of matches with Durrell that were pretty boring to watch, and he's walked into a world title fight with apparently the lineal champion, so it just shows being signed up to Heyman what that can do for you. But yeah, he just pretty much went as expected, to be honest. Stevenson, he don't really do much with his right hand whatsoever, but he was throwing that left. Obviously it's very fast, very powerful, and like Kurt said, he was landing pretty much at will. And I was watching it last night and thinking about the Kovalev fight. If the WBA, I think it is, if they're serious about mandating that fight, then good on him, and hopefully it gets made. But I can see Stevenson being the counter puncher in that, to be honest, and kind of sitting back. He's got quite. I think the commentators last night were okay. I think it was Macklin and I forgot the other kid's name. I thought they was all right, and Macklin was right. Where Stevenson kind of, he don't step back, he kind of leans back. So I can see him being the matador almost against Kovalev, and like most people were aware of, if he lands that left hand on anyone, you're in trouble. So and also a point on Sky last night, there was man enough to have dusted off the tape of Bellew getting slammed in Canada a year or so ago. I thought they'd lost that tape, but they brought that out last year. The embarrassment of which it was, and I was glad that the people at home were reminded of that, because that seemed to get brushed under the carpet, Bellew's embarrassing performance.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised that they even mentioned it, to be honest. They didn't even show much of Bellew.
Yeah, they didn't.
The sort of American show, hardly mentioned it, but I guess they didn't really have the rights to that. Was a HBO broadcast, wasn't it? So they didn't really show that, because I watched the American stream. I had absolutely no interest in watching the Sky card, apart from the Joshua fight. Even that was just, a bit of schadenfreude just to moan about later on this podcast. But yeah, I thought that, I don't know, Stevenson, to me, I wasn't that impressed by him last night. I mean, maybe it was a bit bold of me to expect him to knock out Beaker. Beaker is, a very tough man. He still hasn't been stopped, obviously, and he's fought some, hellacious fighters. Obviously, going way back to, Sergio Calzaghe, and obviously that was, how long ago was that? That was about 9 years ago, I think we're getting on about. So, Beaker, he's been about, and he gave Stevenson a few issues, I think, not, it's difficult, really, because I saw, obviously, Stevenson was showboating many times throughout the fight. He was playing up to the crowd. He was doing his, little bolo punch wind up and jogging around. And in the 12th round, he was doing his little alley shuffle. But, he wasn't looking spectacular before he was showboating. All he was doing was winging in the big left hand. And we know he's got a really good left hand, but Kovalev has proven he's, an excellent boxer. Excuse me. He's proven that, against Hopkins, he can box a very intelligent game and sort of shut down an opponent. And I think if Stevenson just keeps going in trying to wing in the left hand like he did against Beaker, then he's just going to get ended. He's just going to get completely broken apart. Obviously, if the left hand lands in, anyone's going down. But I think that Kovalev would obviously deal with that. Maybe it's just because he was showboating and wasn't really trying his best. So, what can you do about that? Maybe he's got to step up and fight someone who will press it on him a bit more. I'd like to see him against I said it before, I'd like to see him against Pascal. That'd be obviously a very big fight in Canada. So, make that one happen next.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Paul? Who would you like to see him going in next? I mean, we'd obviously like this Kovalev fight to happen, but with all the politics and what have you, can Stevenson afford any more of these defences, or does he have to just step right on up now?
I think he can afford to have a couple more. I mean, he is an older fighter, and there isn't, as much as we talk about how good the light heavyweight division is in terms of its top opponents, in terms of its top 10, 15, it's not necessarily the strongest. So, but there are fights they could make for him. Obviously, the fight we all want to see is Kovalev, and I was actually really impressed with Stevenson last night. I thought he boxed well. We expect him to come out and bang people, but what I've liked in the fights post-Dawson is how he's handled himself from a boxing point of view. He doesn't throw any right hands, doesn't throw that many jabs, but he controls the distance. He never looked in any trouble last night. And I mean, Beaker's not the most exciting fighter in the world, but I thought he handled it really, really well. And I think the Kovalev fight, which a lot of people heavily favour Kovalev in, I think it's Kurt that said earlier about anyone with a punch like Stevenson has a chance. No, I completely agree. I think he would make that a very difficult fight, and I think his boxing skills are really underrated, and I think he's shown a lot of that in his last couple of fights.
We're actually joined by David Lowe back on the line. David, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent stuff. What was your view on the fight last night? I mean, were you impressed with Stevenson? Would you go along with our line that Beaker was brought in as a tough guy with not much chance to win, particularly? I mean, how did you see it over the pond?
I watched the end of Beterbiev Campillo, and then I just started Stevenson Beaker, and it was so awful. and such a pathetic matchup that I refused to give it any more of my time and shut it off. I didn't see the whole thing. But from what I did see was Stevenson looking, his usual self, sort of one-armed. He always looks to set up that left hand, especially the straight left hand. He doesn't really have much of an imaginative right hand, and the first knockdown I thought was fake. That's about when I shut it off. I was like, well, what's the point of this? The scorecards were very weirdly close from what I hear. I didn't think Biko... the scorecards make it as though Biko was in the fight. Apparently he only won 2 or 3 rounds, but...
I only gave him 3 rounds maximum, and I'd probably say closer to 2 rounds, but, the judges seem to give him almost, 6 or 7... Well, not 6 or 7, 5 or 4, I suppose.
Yeah, you're right, David. Actually, judging by the scores, you would think if you take the knockdowns out, it's actually a pretty close fight.
Yeah.
Is that all you've got on that one for us?
Yeah, are we going to talk about the rumor that Kurt posted on the forum about Stevens' next fight against Craig Barker?
Go for it, man. If you've got a rumor, then let's hear it.
Oh, okay. I didn't find this rumor, but Kurt found this on where is it? A French sports reporter that Stevenson wants to next face Craig Baker in Haiti. Some unknown guy. What kind of joke is that?
That's a rumour that's clearly been started by Eddie Hearn.
Did he, what did he say post-fight? Did he mention Kovalev at all?
No, he wasn't asked. They didn't ask him. They didn't mention Kovalev.
Oh, how convenient for him.
Do you begrudge him, Dave, that sort of fight in Haiti, or is it more the fact of the opponents, complete unknown, or what's your problem with that?
I begrudge him existing until he faces Kovalev, unless he decides to, retire. Yeah, I'm not a fan. I've been a hater since he made that bitch move, duck over to Showtime and Heyman. And if that's seriously what he wants to do for his next fight, it's so transparently embarrassing that, how do you say, the sweet spot in this sour mess is that other people are starting to catch on to the fact that Stevenson is fighting scrubs or no-hopers while Kovalev's the exciting guy to watch. The night Kovalev and Pascal fought, Twitter was exploding, everybody was watching, it was exciting, HBO carried the fight. Now, yesterday, no one even knew some people didn't even know Stevenson was fighting, nobody was watching. It's on in the afternoon.
Less than 5,000 in attendance as well, in a venue that holds over 15,000.
Yep, which is good.
Well, that's interesting then. We're actually joined by the big boss man now, Tommy Allen's on the line. That's interesting, Tommy, in the fact that not only are people not watching on the TV, but they're not turning out in the venue either. This is obviously a sign of Stevenson's popularity plummeting. Are you a hater like Dave? Have you got beef with Adonis?
Actually, I like watching him fighting, but obviously, being a big Sergey Kovalev fan, there's not really an excuse for him not to make that fight. It should have happened by now. Obviously, there's rumours and that about his next fight. And this is a fight that's going to happen. They're clearly 1 and 2 in the division until maybe Baterviev can prove different. But the blame's firmly with Adonis Stevenson for this, so he doesn't get a pass from me. No, I'm a hater, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, you were mentioning Arthur Beterbiev there, actually, Tommy, so I suppose we can neatly segue in without completely forgetting about Adonis and his performance, and we can still mention him. But, did you see anything of the Beterbiev-Campillo fight last night? That was further down the undercard. Beterbiev got rid of Campillo in the 4th round. We know that Campillo is a pretty slow starter. He can be an elusive guy when he wants to be, but Beterbiev, he looks right and handy, this guy. Are you happy enough with what you saw? Did you see the fight?
I saw the fight, mate, yeah. I'm very impressed with Beterbiev. I actually made a post on the forum about 6 months ago saying that he will be the best light heavyweight in the world. I'm a big fan of Sergey Kovalev as well, but I think Beterbiev's just tougher than him. I don't know if Sergey's chin will stand up to what Beterbiev's got to offer. He was just vicious last night. Came out the first round, they hurt him big right hand. Campillo actually done well to get through that. But what impressed me more about Beterbiev was in rounds 2 and 3, where he could have possibly got him out there at any time. He took his time. He didn't rush in. He just let the KO come naturally. And when it came, what a knockout it was with the right hand, left hook to finish it. Campillo was absolutely gone.
Campillo, like I said, Alex, reasonable enough competitor at world level, not the greatest, but he's a good step up. We've seen Beterbiev get rid of Tavoris Cloud as well. Wouldn't say he had trouble with the guy, Page Jr., wasn't it, he fought last time, but he offered Beterbiev something a little bit different from what he'd seen before. I mean, who's going to challenge this guy? Is anybody at the moment? Can we throw him into this Stevenson-Kovalev sort of mix and Pascal already, or does he need a couple more learning fights? What would you do with him?
I quite like, the fights that we've seen him in so far, and the ones where he is absolutely, obliterating his opposition. You still do see a couple of mistakes, and you wonder if these mistakes are simply because he's just so overconfident that he goes in and, wings away, just slowly demolishes the guys, and he takes punches just because he knows he can get away with it, or if there was, another facet to his game. And I think that one of the most obvious fights for me is the Isaac Chilemba fight there. I think that a very slick boxer might be able to deal with what that Beterbiev is bringing. Because even last, well, exactly, who does beat Isaac Chilemba? I think we'll have to refer to Mr. Bellew over that one. But I think it's a great fight for any of the top 10 at the moment. Chilemba seems to have come on leaps and bounds since the Bellew fiasco. He's still, not the most exciting fighter, but that's sort of the point when you're trying to challenge these guys who seem to have dynamite in their fists. We're trying to see how they deal with someone who's going to be slick, who's trying to, going to outbox them. And I think that Beterbiev will have to show another facet to his game unless he just literally bombs him out, which he could easily do. He's got some serious power there, and it'll be a stern test for him. I do think that Stevenson is more likely to fight Beterbiev than he is Kovalev, and I think Beterbiev would bomb Stevenson out, but I would rather Kovalev have the honour of doing that job.
Kurt, you've thrown a couple of names into the mix that you would like to see Beterbiev go in with before we know that he's ready for the likes of Kovalev or the likes of Stevenson. Andre Fonfara, if he loses to Chavez, I think, and Enzo Maccarinelli, I'm digging that last one, definitely. What do you think?
Well, if he gets past Enzo Mac, then, Sky have Jurgen Brayman above Bernard Hopkins in the rankings, and that reason is because he beat Enzo Maccarinelli. It's a great win.
All seriousness, I mean, Fonfara, is that the type of level you think you'd like to see Beterbiev in, or can we just fast track him? I
know that you want to fast track, but I don't see there's any rush, to be honest. I mean, there's only Stevenson or Kovalev there who he'll face for a title, I suppose. So, I think a guy like Fonfara next, a guy like Chilemba, and then I think before he goes on to Stevenson or Kovalev, I think John Pascal, that's the last person he'd have to beat. I'd like to see him in. I think you rush him in with Kovalev or Stevenson. If he does lose, then he doesn't do much for him, and we don't know how good that win is. But at least if he bombs out a few of these guys, and then he can build up the fight nicely.
I think Pascal's better than Stevenson, though, to be honest.
Would you like? Go ahead, Dave. Pascal, are you looking? Flip me, I can hear me about three times here. Can you, would you like to stick Pascal in with Beterbiev next? Would that be a decent measuring stick? I know it's a bit harsh to refer to Pascal as a measuring stick, but I'm sure you understand what I mean.
Yeah, that would be fine. I think he would probably beat him. I'm kind of anti-Beterbiev just because he worries me. I'm a big fan of Kovalev, and right now I think Kovalev would beat him. So I don't want him to learn too much in the pro game. I want him to get in there now and just get ended. I don't really like the guy. He's like a cruiserweight, boils down to 175, and he talks a lot of smack. So I don't know. I want Kovalev to get him.
Paul, you can be a hard man to please, and I know that you're getting up for Beterbiev here. You've got a bit of man love for him. What do you reckon? Maybe a Nathan Cleverly fight against Beterbiev? Would that get you going?
Oh, well, it would. They'd be stupid to make it. But no, Beterbiev, I've been hugely impressed in all the fights I've seen him. But last night it was the way he picks his shots, the power he puts behind, and he just looked so comfortable. I've never seen a fighter. I mean, we'll probably talk later about how you should progress a quality amateur when we talk about Joshua. And I think Beterbiev is a great example of how you progress somebody. Every time he stepped up to a better level of opposition, he just takes care of it. I thought he was absolutely superb last night. And again, he's had 8 fights, so do you want to throw him in with a Kovalev or a Pascal, or even Steve Kovalev, Pascal or Stevenson? Possibly not yet, but he's definitely on the fringe. I mean, I was hugely, hugely impressed with him. And like I said, there are fighters who will probably take him the rounds, and I think that's what we've got to look at now. The dreaded Isaac Chilemba, I think he takes him rounds. There are the light heavyweight rankings. I mean, if you look down, realistically, Mohammadi, I mean, Von Farah, like you say, he's got the fight coming up. There's not a huge amount there before he goes in one of the 3 main champions. He's not going to fight Bramer because they're not stupid, and it would mean putting him in with Kovalev or Stevenson. But I thought he was excellent, and I won't be missing many more of his fights, but he was really superb last night.
Mm-hmm. Kurt, before we move on to the Sky Show, final word to you. We've seen Beterbiev here. He's only had a few fights, and people are looking for him to step up in class already and fight the best guys. And also the likes of Lomachenko, of course, we've seen him after 2 or 3 fights going in for a world title. Are these just 2 exceptions to the rule, or is there a bit of a sea change in boxing, whereas we're seeing these guys thrown in earlier, and it's a case of if they're good enough and they've fought well as enough as an amateur or whatever, and they've had this WSB experience or these sort of interim fights, just throw them in? I mean, is this going to be a new trend we could be seeing?
Yeah, I think it is, and I think it's great that the fighters are doing that. I mean, I got no problem with a fighter wanting to, learn more about pro ranks. I mean, you can be in the amateurs for years, but it's a different game. But some of these guys are just so full of confidence, and with the World Series of Boxing, it's more like the pros, and also they're sparring a lot of top guys as well, and some of them are just full of confidence and have got no problem going in there. You just wonder though, to get the fight built up, they need to, instead of rushing, maybe it's just best if they do beat a few of the top contenders. Beterbiev, he destroyed Cloud, he destroyed Campillo. On one side that's fantastic, and it is fantastic, but you got to look at it. Those guys were past their best, and it's a big jump to go from them who are past their best to a Kovalev or Stevenson, in my opinion. And there's no need for him to jump, even though he would happily take those fights. I've got no doubt. I just like put him in with guys in their prime. Chilemba and Farah. You might not think much of them fighters, but at least they're in their prime, and let's see how he deals with them. And then get more ring experience, and then go in with a Kovalev or Stevenson. And also the fight's built up for the fans as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's definitely exciting times ahead, and as always, I suppose, with the old sport of boxing, it's just a case of getting the guys in against each other. The fighters are definitely out there, the light heavyweight division. It's just pushing the politics to one side and getting them thrown in. Talking of pushing the politics to one side and throwing them in, what about flying back over to the UK and having a look at our main man, Anthony Joshua? Now, I know that this has stirred up a fair bit of debate. There's all sorts of noises going on in the background. I think I know what you're referring to. But of course, Anthony Joshua got his 10th win, I think it was, with 10 knockouts now. This is against Jason Gavin, the overmatched American. Maybe I'm being a bit unkind in there. Was he?
The defensive puzzle. That's his new nickname.
The defensive puzzle, the sensation. He's got all these sort of euphemistic names going on at the moment. To be honest, I mean, what can you say about this one? I lost track of how many times Gavin went down in the end. He offered pretty much minimal resistance to the future People's Champion. And while I can sort of understand why they're taking him around the arenas and showing him to everybody, he's the former gold medalist and he's this great Olympian, this great heavyweight hope, the level of opposition that they're putting him in against isn't really doing him any favours at the moment. Even the casual fan will see through these mismatches and already are starting to do so. Adam, I mean, what do you think about the matchmaking? Are you happy enough with the direction that Eddie Hearn's taking him in?
I'm a bit undecided on the Gavin fight. I mean, they could have just gone straight to May the 30th for the Kingpin fight, which I think most people are in agreement that that's a decent step up and a test for Joshua, one which he needs, of course. But yeah, I mean, last night the matchmaking was was shocking. But as we know, Gavin brings a bit of banter to the Newcastle show. So that was obviously the main thing they was looking for when they was going through potential opponents for the next heavyweight champion of the world. But I think they're doing an okay job with him. They are taking him around different arenas. I think Alex is no doubt going to say, and I agree with him, that he needs different tests. Taller guys, southpaws. He still hasn't had that. But yeah, I think they're doing a decent job of him. But what we have to remember is he is getting through to the casuals. If Matchroom really did get 6,000 people through the door last night, that is impressive, because the card in terms of quality of operators on there and quality of matchups was not brilliant by any stretch. And yet, if they have managed to get that many people through the door, that is somewhat impressive. And
how did they manage it, Adam, then? Sorry to interrupt you. If it wasn't for the card, if it wasn't people going to watch what was going on in the ring, what were they going for?
Mixler will probably go mad, but it's a two-word answer, and the answer is Anthony Joshua, I'm afraid. And
is it impressive, though?
Well, I think it is. It's not impressive to us, obviously. It's not impressive to us. But if they're selling shit, they're selling complete shit last night, and they've still managed to sell it. They've managed to sell. And
that just means they're going to sell more shit. That's the problem. That's why it's depressing.
But as a business, like I say, I don't agree with it. But as a business model, if they can put on shit as it was and still sell, I'm not saying they're sold out, and I don't think Matchroom is saying they're sold out, but 6,000, if they did get 6,000, I've not got the correct figures, I might be completely wrong. If they did get 6,000 through there last night, 6,000 bums on seats, that is, as a business model, they're killing it. He's laughing all the way back to his Essex Bank. Fair dues. But I think they're doing okay with Joshua. They didn't have to send him out last night, but he almost saved the card when Saunders, I think, got injured. And even if Saunders would have been on there, he's still not a brilliant card. He's very much in the building and prospect stage of his career. I think they will get past Joshua. If they knock him out, obviously it's something that's not been done. That's another yardstick. And I do believe that they will put Joshua in with a Price or, someone along them lines in the summer. I think that they'll put him in with Price. I might be completely wrong again, but I think they'll put him in with Price. It will capture the public's imagination a little bit, and it will be a big fight. But what we've got to remember is Anthony Joshua is the biggest asset that Eddie Hearn and Matchroom have ever had. Certainly in Eddie's tenure as the gaffer. Barry obviously had some big fighters back in the day. Joshua is the golden ticket to their operation as we speak, and that's why they're going to be safety first with him.
See, the thing is, if this was any normal run-of-the-mill young heavyweight coming through, you'd be thinking to yourself, this isn't too bad a position for him. But obviously, an Olympic champion, and he's fighting guys who's expected to knock over. But what I think pisses most people off is the people that are turning around, the casual fans turning around and saying that they're seeing against these guys and they're saying this is a future world champion. You can't say that until he gets hit in the chin. You can't say that until he's 10 rounds. The opposition isn't that bad, but as I say, the hype is, yeah.
But really, I know it sounds a bit repetitive, but Joshua, the first point is Joshua's, not saying that kind of stuff himself. It's the idiots around him that are. And secondly, I say this every time as well, his amateur experience to have gained a gold medal is comparatively to all other gold medalists, it ain't a lot. So he is still learning and improving. But last night, I don't think did anything. I think previous knockover jobs for Joshua did help him come along. He was seeing mistakes and, stuff he could improve on. And I noted stuff that he improved on from fight to fight. Last night, I don't think brings anything to the promotion or the fighter, to be honest. I don't think there was any benefit to any of them. I got a text off my mate who does casually follow boxing. So, Joshua is a fighter that he knows, and as soon as it started, he texted me and said, "Did they get this guy off the street?" Because obviously, Gavin didn't look up to it from the first bell. But
the hype is sickening, though. I mean, you understand the guys are going to promote him, but this hype. I remember when David Price was getting all the hype, and that was annoying because he was largely untested as well. But this is nothing to what these guys are doing.
It's almost out of control.
Darren Barker calling him a future Hall of Famer. Eddie Hearn saying, he beats all these guys. Eddie Hearn saying, when we decide to give David Price a payday, when we decide to give Dylan White a payday, it's just a joke. Stop saying that he could beat all of these guys right now and then saying in the next sentence, oh, but he's still learning, it's a journey. Fuck the journey. If he's good enough, put him in. If not, shut your mouth and put him in with these shit fights and no one will say nothing. Look at Hughie Fury. No one's really dogging his opposition because he's doing it quietly. They're not telling everyone that he's going to beat all these guys. Now, I don't expect them to do that with Joshua. They're going to hype him a bit, and there's no problem with that. But this hype has got sickening. That Kevin Johnson, yeah, he's a step up and he's a totally fine opponent, but he won't throw a punch. In 12 rounds, he might throw a jab now and again. That's about it. That's just another case of, like we spoke about with Saki Obika, can he go the distance? That is the only thing about that fight, because there is not a chance in hell safety pin will win the fight, because he has to throw a punch to win, unless, Joshua collapses on his own stall. So after that, let's see him in with Dylan White. Let's see him in with David Price. I want to see him in with guys who are big and who can punch, because this guy's never been hit on the chin yet, and I want to see what happens when he is.
Yeah, I've seen him get hit on the chin a fair amount of times, actually, in the Olympics. Do any of you guys on the panel believe he deserved that medal?
No. And I don't follow the amateur game at all, to be honest.
I think he won the final, but he was very lucky in the first round match up against the Cuban. But
the Cuban,
He lost
like,
first
school,
round.
made him look like Muhammad Ali.
Hold on, everybody's going all at once. Hold on. Dave, go on ahead and make your point first.
At the minute, I'm it fell to pieces.
I don't know, it seems like it has fell to pieces. Can everybody hear me okay, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, Dave, go on ahead and make your point about the Olympics, please.
Well, I mean, I basically said, I mean, nobody here thinks that he deserves that medal. There were two fights that he arguably lost. The final was a close one. Some people gave it to him, like Tommy, but nobody gave him that first fight against, I think, Savone. I mean, he got schooled. He made the Cuban guy look like Muhammad Ali.
Dave, he didn't get fucking schooled in the first round. I'm not saying I'm anti Joshua's biggest fan, but he didn't get schooled. There was a close fight that could have went either way, so was the final, but it kind of makes up for him getting robbed in the World Championship final, doesn't it? Because he was blatantly robbed in that.
Well, it doesn't matter either way. The amateurs are pointless, and I mean, I think a gold medal in the Olympics means a lot less today than it used to. Being the amateur rules allow for, I mean, they're completely different than the pros. It's just like slap the guy and you get a point.
If you had orgasm when that female won the medal for America, we're talking about it for months because none of your shite fucking male fighters won any.
Errol Spence got robbed as well. But anyway, we're done talking about the Olympics for now. The judging was awful, but I mean, I'm actually a fan of Joshua so far. I mean, I think his career's been done very well. I think the hype is annoying, especially from Barry Hearn's thing. He's got like the power of Ernie Shavers and the jab of Lennox Lewis, but it's I think he's entertaining. It's almost like the rise of Mike Tyson, the way he was just like knocking out a bunch of guys, like right in a row. It's good for boxing. I was kind of irritated by his time off. I guess he was injured, but I liked how he stepped in last night and fought Gavin. I mean, it's a crappy opponent, but I mean, he was already scheduled for a fight, and he steps in just on short notice and takes the guy out. I mean, that's not. I mean, at least you're active, Just fight.
Mm-hmm. Steve, I'm okay with how it's gone so far.
Go on ahead, Adam. Go on ahead.
I'm okay with how it's gone so far, but the point in time to be really judge it is after the Johnson fight. If they go backwards to the likes of Gavin, then I'll hate on it. If they go forwards to the like of David Price, then I think they're doing a good job.
Okay, Alex. The fact is about him going backwards and going forwards. Actually, we had a Twitter question from Boom82, and he seems to think that the likes of Gavin are going to actually be detrimental to Joshua's progression, because he actually put to us that he felt this was Joshua's worst pro performance, and he said that Anthony was clearly pissed off. Do you think he will now force Hearn to put him in better fights? Do you think Joshua himself is getting fed up with this level of opposition, or do you just agree with Dave, think that at the end of the day, he's active, he's fighting, just stick him out there?
Yeah,
Well, first of all, we're lucky that Anthony Joshua is still walking. Obviously, the back injury that he had was very serious, and we're lucky he's not in a wheelchair for permanently. But, you know, it's fair enough that he's saying things like that. It's difficult to actually hate on Joshua himself, apart from some of the points we've made in the past about, you know, his manufactured personality. I think that he definitely wants these fights to happen, and he's trying his best and just trying to go out there and win and try and learn from things. I think he's almost definitely got the work ethic and the motivation, you know, that he constantly drums on about, you know, his hunger and nonsense like that. But, you know, it's just a constant fucking bullshit from everyone else around him that makes it just totally unbearable. I mean, he is a bit of a cringy fucker himself, you know, with his motivational quotes all the time and hungry, humble, fuck fear, bollocks. But I don't know. I mean, the Gavin fight, it was a nothing fight, wasn't it? He came back off 5 months off of injury. He was just getting back in the ring, but, you know, what can you make of that? Nothing. He learnt nothing from it. We learnt that, well, nothing. We learnt that the hype behind him is far greater than, you know, any fighter that Matchroom have ever had and is likely to ever have. You know, they've put so much money into him. He had his second documentary run this week on ITV, and, you know, plenty of casuals are lapping that shit up. Instead, you know, when he's fighting, the casuals still lap it up, though. It doesn't matter who he's fighting. You see the likes, you know, just dozens of these tweets out there, you know, he's a beast, he's a monster, he's this, he's that. And he does look good, but who's he fighting? He's fighting nobody. And I can't see that improving because he's still selling, well, not selling out, but he's still selling thousands and thousands of tickets to fight these nobodies, to fight these bums. Kevin Johnson is not a test, okay? I said I wanted him to fight him purely because it's a power gauge for him. We're going to see how hard he really hits.
I was just saying, be fair to Kevin Johnson. Let's be like Vladimir Klitschko faced Alex Lee Pye, the guy Kevin Johnson stopped. I mean, how often can Kevin Johnson stop somebody? But Kevin Johnson stopped this guy. We're criticizing an up-and-comer for facing Kevin Johnson, the guy who beat this heavyweight title challenger, and people were getting excited over Vlad dismantling this fat oaf in 4 rounds. And, I mean, at least Johnson's fighting the winner. I mean, Joshua's fighting the winner.
Thing is, what else has Kevin Johnson done lately? I mean, he's lost the last 4 of his last 5 fights. 4 of the last 5, you know, all of them obviously going to points decision. And he's not going to do anything. That's the thing. It's the style of it. You know he's not going to do anything. Alex Leopai, yeah, he's shit. And the reason that fight only happened was because of a mandatory, which Vlad takes, and we know how much you hate Vlad. But, you know, back to Joshua, I don't think they're going to step him up. I don't think they're going to make these domestic fights, because you've got Han saying all this bullshit about, you know, oh, we'll give Price a payday, we'll give them a payday. You know, they're not even mentioning the likes of Dillian White or Huey Fury, the guys that actually might prove, you know, a bit of a test or a bit of a nuisance, you know, and you just hope that they're going to do something with him, because I think that they realise how much for cash cow he is, and they're just going to milk it for what it's worth.
I agree that Johnson isn't going to provide much in the way of actually winning the fight and beating Joshua, but he's going to frustrate him. Is Joshua going to get frustrated? Is he going to take the disciplined approach like Fury did when he realised he wasn't getting Johnson out there, you know, go the 12 rounds, or is he going to get frustrated and go the other way and try and throw, you know, stupid shots and maybe get caught trying to bomb him out when that's not the right strategy at the time? We're gonna see something different. We're not going to see Joshua lose, as everyone said, but we're going to see something different. As you know, is he going to box for 12 rounds, or is he going to blast him out? Which, you know, if Joshua does stop Johnson, and Johnson's never been stopped, however old Johnson might be, you know, that's an okay achievement and something to be noted.
Is it,
unless
though?
it's a Howard Foster stoppage.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, yeah, unless it's Howard Foster stop it. Well, Alex, at the end of the day, Johnson's been in with all these big guns. It might have been a few years ago, but the fact is, he's never been stopped. And, you know, if Joshua does achieve that, and, you know, maybe Johnson is past his best a little bit, if he does achieve it, then fair dues. That is an achievement.
Well, like Kurt says, it depends if it's a proper stoppage. It depends if he leaves him out, or... But, you know, and the thing that's going to annoy people about it, again, is the hype. It's going to be the bullshit that surrounds it. I mean, Pauling was right on it last night about, Gavin fought Deontay Wilder in one of his last fights, and Wilder took 4 rounds to beat him, but Joshua just did it in 3. They're trying to build that, and Wilder is now the WBC heavyweight champion of the world. He beat Gavin, and then he went on to win a world title. Big fucking deal. That was Wilder's tune-up fight, where he literally didn't throw a right hand for 4 rounds, and when he did, he absolutely laid Gavin out. You notice how they didn't tell you that Amir Mansur laid fucking Jason Gavin out in a single round. Some Chinese not journey fights, but he's getting into this self-promotion and self-hype behind it, calling Gavin a defensive puzzle or something. It's absolute nonsense.
You know what the difference is, though?
20 losses, for fuck's sake.
Exactly. The casuals can go on and look at Jason's Gavin record and see that he's lost his last 2.
But they won't.
So many
they
losses.
don't know what box rec is.
Fair dues,
is.
But it's not difficult. But what I'm saying, what the comparison I'm making, Gavin was a shocking opponent, whichever way you look at it. But when they get one of these apparently undefeated Argentinians just got quick, the building up, he's undefeated, it can kind of work because it's true. But last night with Gavin, I mean, look, his record's horrible. His shape's not brilliant. It was stupid, the amount of hype.
Mm-hmm. But some of the connections aren't the best, unfortunately. Maybe mine's even going while I'm saying this, but apologies, we are working on that at the moment. Paul, you're sitting listening intently to the debates flowing backwards and forwards. The question I was going to put to you, actually, is a question that came in from Lee Davis. If Hearn hadn't called out all the top guys, bar Vladimir Klitschko last year, and just let Joshua's boxing do the talking, would there even be an issue here? I mean, would we even getting on Joshua's back? Is Eddie to blame here?
Yeah, I think there would, because there's several parts to the problem with Joshua. So one is the fact that the matching has been quite poor. If you look at his last 5 or 6 opponents, they're all much of a muchness. There's no step up between Konstantin Eric, Dennis Baktov, Michael Sprott to Jason Gavin. It's all the same. There isn't an obvious progression there. And Kevin Johnson is a progression, but in a bad way. It's a progression to someone who isn't going to try and punch back, and no one wants to see that. I think Joshua, because of the hype that's behind him, even if you took away the fact that Hearn said he could beat Fury, he could beat Price, he could beat Klitschko, there's always going to be critics of how he fights and how he does it. If you look at it, he's had 11 fights, he stopped 11 opponents. They've all been poor. They've all been way below the level you'd expect, and we do need to see an improvement. But fighters like him, any hyped prospect, I had it with Amir Khan in his first 10 or 12 fights, certainly had it with Audley Harrison in his first 10. There's always going to be that heavy level of criticism. And the main part for me is the fact that Anthony Joshua is being used to save very poor matchroom shows. So he threw him on that show last night. If Anthony Joshua had pulled out injured, I think they'd have pulled the show. I think that's the state that Newcastle card had got in. And he's now being put on as basically not just an event saver, but as the main ticket driver. So you totally see where Matchroom are coming from with this, but we're getting really poor shows because of it. And Joshua, in his 10th or 11th fight, shouldn't have to be the main draw on an event, because when you're fighting after such a few amount of fights, you're going to be put in with crap. And people are going to be disappointed that he's knocking out Sprott, he's knocking out Gavin, and it's not the kind of fighters we want to see. If he was 4 or 5 fights down the bill in an 8-rounder, no one would care. We'd all be happy with it. It's the hype, it's the fact he's been put on to save shows, and it's the poor matchmaking.
Tommy, looking at Anthony Joshua's next fight, actually, we had a question in from Gary_Young7, and I suppose we're putting to one side the Kevin Johnson fight, and looking past that, assuming, obviously, that Joshua's going to get rid of Johnson or he's going to beat him. If Anthony Joshua is to fight David Price, how would you see that one going?
Oh, I'd have to pick Anthony Joshua on that fight. David Price is in me the absolute class. The thing with Price is, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet here, but since that guy made his pro debut till he went to about 6 or 7 fights, when people started hyping him up big time, I see this guy's an actually waiting to happen. I actually followed him quite a lot in the amateur. I used to follow the amateur scene quite closely, read about him a lot, watched a few of his fights, and he was pretty much going down And he was winning a lot of fights, but he was going down a lot of fights too, and he was getting stopped in a lot of fights as well. So obviously in the pro ranks, I thought he was actually an excellent weight to have. But that's what I've kind of been saying about Joshua as well. You didn't really know a heavyweight until they're hitting the chin, but I'd go with Anthony Joshua in that fight. I think he'd be too fast and powerful for Price. He'd catch him early, and he's confident as well. He's going in there full of confidence. I don't think David Price really looks confident just now. He's, there's something missing with him, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the other questions we actually got in from Chadder's Cha. I think Paul maybe already answered this one with AJ saving every card. Is Eddie struggling for tickets and dropouts? How long will it be before Joshua gets a proper fight? I mean, Paul, I suppose briefly with you on this one, how long will it be before we see Joshua in with the likes of Price, Dillian White, Hughie Fury? Are we going to have to be content with the Kevin Johnsons or the Jason Gaverns of this world for another 5-10 fights? How long do you think it'll be?
I think it'll only be a couple more. I think we'll have Johnson, then we'll have another international fight with a slightly less past it heavyweight, probably a European, and then we may well get the British fights. The problem is he's not looking to progress like Fury did for English title, British title, so he's skipping over your John McDermotts and fighters like that. I think he will have a couple more, and then hopefully I want to see Dillian White first, because I think David Price is a much bigger fight, and I think David Price is a lot better than Dillian White. So I'd like him to be put in with White. They could sell that quite easily because of the little feud that's going on between them. I think it'd be a really good option for them to go, and then look to make the Price fight later in the year. And then from then, you'd like to think they'll escalate him quite quickly. There's no reason why he shouldn't be fighting, if he's as good as everyone thinks he is, at world title level inside of 20 fights. There's no reason at all.
Fair enough. David Loback, in history, where would you rank Jason Gavern amongst all the all-time defensive puzzles?
Well, I'm not going to compare him to Willie Pep like you might have done the other week, but
That was Chilembo compared to Willie Pep.
That's not much better, though, is it, to be fair?
Gavern, I mean, I can't even think of that many fighters that are above him, so, I mean, I'm not even going to go there.
Okay, fair enough. Alex, no, don't get too annoyed on this one. That last question was from Strangeways21, but don't get too annoyed on this one. When do you think the casuals are going to become tired of the old Joshua hype train, the banal training, philosophy updates, and the poor opponents? Our friend Jack Bauer 47 is asking you to run the rule over that one. When do you think people are going to get fed up of this? Have you got fed up yet? I'm sure you haven't.
Well, I love hearing about how hungry and humble Joshua is, and how he went for a run last night, and he went for a run on Christmas Day, and he's going back to do 500 rounds on the pads. But I think the casuals will never get sick of it, because this is how they see boxing. They see boxing as, these hardcore guys who are just training all the time and being like Rocky and, like Tyson as well. That's all Joshua is. He's this idea and this fantasy of what good boxing is. He's a guy that goes out and gets lots of knockouts. He talks about how humble he is despite how he beats people up for a living, and how he wants to just be better and better and win a world title. Joshua ticks all of those boxes, which is why he's so, or why a lot of us feel he's manufactured. So I think that the casuals won't lose interest, because he is exactly what the casuals want.
Paul, you were saying there actually on the Skype chat, I mean, you think that Joshua is completely set up for the casuals rather than the hardcores? Is this the market he's being played to? Should we forget about him altogether as so-called hardcores, or what's the point you want to make on that regard?
Yeah, I just think he's the first fighter that
so-called
Hearn's had from
hardcores,
scratch, where he
what's the
can
point you want to
completely
make on
build
that
him
regard?
into your football fans fighter, that they're desperate to try and get that crowd over, the darts crowd, the football crowd, and start afresh with him. I think we're going to watch him hopefully progress to a world title, and we will enjoy it, but the rhetoric, the crap that's coming out from Hearn and his dad and the rest of the camp, it's aimed solely at the casual. I don't think they care what hardcore fans think of the hype behind Joshua at all, because they know that all of the money and all of the stadium fan support is going to come from casuals. And they keep talking about Joshua to be a crossover star, and a lot of promoters say that about their fighters, but they really mean it with this. They want Joshua to be the face of boxing in the UK, and the margin of the hardcore fans is very small compared to the potential margin you get out of the casuals.
Kurt, like I said, we had quite a few Twitter questions coming in regarding Anthony Joshua. That's why I sort of went rogue and threw them all in here, so we could get the Joshua discussion out the way right now. We obviously have more Twitter questions coming up later after our callers, but just for the last two, Jackson_Park92 was asking you, how many woos does it take to knock a man out?
Well, I think the best one came from McDonald, and I was hoping that he would get knocked out after he said it, to be honest. But Gavin didn't really do much, did he? I think once he was in the ring, he was all, there was no jokes from me. He wanted out of there. So, yeah, I mean, that's why he got the fight, though, isn't it? There's more durable Eastern Europeans out there, but he's got great banter, and he goes, woo!
Yeah, I think he was brought in on his banter, wasn't he, and the prize fighter performance and the fact that he gives people a bit of entertainment. Tommy, you can have the final say as the main man on our Anthony Joshua discussion. The final verdict from you. What's more useful, asks Sean Connolly, Anthony Joshua's fight with the sensation or a chocolate teapot?
I'll get the coin out with that one. As Peter Fury said, Peter Fury was quite good on Twitter last night. He came out and says what does he learn from this fight? Absolutely nothing. That fight was nothing, was it? So rolling the Johnson's fight. We'll see where he's at. See if we can put him away.
Mm-hmm. Excellent stuff, Tommy. Well, thanks very much to everybody who sent in those particular questions. Like I said, we do have more Twitter questions coming up later. But firstly, before we go on to our callers, I think we've got our Asif lined up, so don't all get excited all at once. But Adam, I believe that you were going to let us know what was going on in the undercard of the Sky Show. There was a fight between Steve Simmons and, was it Travis? No, it was John Lewis Dickinson that Simmons fought, wasn't it? And John Lewis won with an 8th round knockout. What was your verdict on this one, Adam? How did you find the fight?
Well, for the second week running, I showed how terrible my fight predictions / betting habits are, because I went for Simmons KO. He started quite well. Simmons, who was bulldozing forward, working Dickinson nicely to the body, and Dickinson really wasn't thrown with any conviction. He lost his last 2 fights going into last night, so it really was make or break for Dickinson, and he was jabbing quite well from the outset, but he didn't throw his right hand with any conviction until certainly in the midway part of the fight. It was quite evident, rounds 5 or 6, that Simmons was running out of ideas, getting caught with the jab, at will, and he was starting to gas. I think that Simmons fought last night either with an excuse that we yet to hear of, or he just gassed really badly, and then Dickinson grew in confidence that that Simmons wasn't landing, and it was quite messy, and it was a poor performance from Simmons in truth. And I know when Dickinson got the confidence that, Simmons was there for the taking, he went and did it, and, hats off to Dickinson and the poor run of betting, having gone for an Adam Etchers KO win last week that backfired badly. I had another one that backfired badly again this week, but I think Dickinson, some were, Glenn McClory was saying after that he was, quite high on him before, and he's obviously not prepared very well for one of his last fights, and then had an injury for another. I mean, it's all stuff we've heard before in terms of excuses, but onwards and upwards for Dickinson, and Simmons has such a poor performance. He needs to rebuild in a big way.
Mm-hmm. Just looking down the undercard there, I noticed Hosea Burton got a knockout win over my old mate Joe Hillaby. I believe Joe took the fight at like a day's notice or something, so can't really read too much into that. Charlie Flynn got a win. Think he was a decent amateur as well. Simon Valili. Stephen Smith was boxing, got a 6-round points win. Travis Dickinson got knocked out in a round. I didn't see that one. That doesn't sound too good. Kurt, what about this Anthony Nelson, Jamie Wilson fight? You think that was a pretty good scrap?
Yeah, it was a really good action fight. It was just sad that it came on after the Joshua fight, and most of the crowd had gone home, and maybe a lot of the viewers turned up as well. But I didn't know much about either guy, and it was a really good fight. Both guys just threw non-stop punches, both desperate to win. And in the end, Wilson was worn down. I think in the 6th round, the referee was wanting to stop it, because he wasn't that he was taking a lot of punches and he was firing back, but he really looked like he was exhausted. He didn't have much left. But every time the ref was going in to stop it, he'd fire a few more punches back, and in the end, his corner pulled him out. But I suggest anyone who hasn't seen it to watch it. It's a 6-round fight, and it was easily the best fight of the card for me.
Paul, go ahead. What are your thoughts on the undercard?
Do you know what? It was on paper. It was probably I think there's argument that it was the weakest show that Matchroom have put on in the sort of the Eddie Hearn era. I think the names that were on the show were the least well known. The quality of the fights in terms of titles were at the lowest, but it actually worked really well. I thought Nelson Wilson was a really cracking, great scrap. There was 2 big upsets with Travis Dickinson knocking out Chadley, and there's obviously the other Dickinson picking up a big win. I thought, this is what you want. I'd rather have that than watch a bunch of A-side fighters taking on 6-rounders against people who aren't there to win. Anthony Nelson and Wilson were both desperate to win last night. John Lewis Dickinson and Stephen Simmons were both desperate to win last night, and they made for really good fights. So while it was weak on paper, I thought the fights were great. I thought they were really entertaining. And again, there was a couple of one-round blowouts to some of the younger prospects. I think the biggest concern was Stephen Smith looked awful against Barrington Brown, got cut badly. I think he really struggled in that. Fighting back-to-back Saturdays, I think, really hasn't paid off well for him.
I didn't even know Barrington Brown was still boxing, but it shows what I know. Kurt, if you want to add Asif onto the call, I believe he's coming on to have a word with us, tell us what's going on. While Kurt's adding Asif, if anybody else has any other business or any Sky undercard related information or anything they want to get off their chest, any confessions they want to make, then jump in now.
Fuck Eddie Hearn.
Fair enough, Alex. Thanks very much for that.
Did you not think that cutting it in with the Canada show was really good, though?
No.
I quite like that. I thought that worked really well. The timing seemed to work well, and it was good to get... Where would
didn't, though, because
but people in the crowd were waiting, yeah.
Oh, yeah, but screw them. We're sat watching it at home.
I watched the American stream because no chance I was going to listen to Bellew talking about it.
It was good, but then again, you'd think most British fans the casual fans wouldn't stay up to watch an Adonis Stevenson fight or get a chance to see Beterbiev later on in the night. I think that was, if we've got these afternoon shows in the States, hopefully they can find a better way of doing it. It was the first time they've tried it, but I think that's good. More international fights on Sky, the better.
Yeah, I mean, better than none, I suppose, but still, I watched the American one.
The commentary was good in the American one. I got on the stream on that, and it was decent.
Oh, yeah. Creepy Virgil.
Apparently, Bellew admitted that Kovalev should be number 1 at light heavyweight last night.
Did he?
He did. Yeah.
Did
he? He said that, yeah.
See if he'd have lost the Cleverly fight again, did anybody actually think he would have said that? No chance, prick.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're actually joined by Asif on the line. Asif, are you there? Asif, can you hear us?
He's got to join the call.
Oh, he hasn't even joined the call. What about Tony Bellew? Did he say anything about when his next fight's going to be, or did he give any insight?
The next fight, I fucking see him at ringside, man. I'll smash his jaw.
I've got a feeling he's going to end up on the May 30th show, you know.
There's a lot of rumours about that. There will be a cruiserweight fight on the May 30th show. I think it all depends on what happens with Brook. But I think there's a good chance you'll see Bellew fight. It might not be the world title, but I think you will see him out on May the 30th.
Steve, is it on your agenda to talk about the Frankie Gavin situation? Because it's more complicated and ongoing than what I thought it was.
It is. I think it's in the Bellew of the Week segment.
We need about an hour to get through all that.
Yeah, it sounds like a bit of a mess. I mean, I was busy yesterday working, but I watched the Eddie Hearn video, and yeah, it sounds really complicated. Yeah. Oh, a bit of a disco from Asif.
Hi, you're right.
Who's hoovering?
Asif, are you in a basement? Are you okay?
No, I'm just listening to a bit of radio, that's all.
Oh, right, no problem. It's great to have you on as always. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a while, and I'd like to thank Aisha for not being on this week, so therefore I'm on this week, I assume. But
okay, fair enough.
Just to talk about the heavyweight, to be honest, there's not that much been going on for the last few weeks, so you've not really missed much. I know a lot of people have been talking about Anthony Joshua, and yeah, it was I didn't watch them fight. I didn't bother wasting my time, really. We know what was going to happen. Did he learn anything from this? No. But a lot of people are saying about Kevin Johnson doing a step up I actually don't think that's going to be a step up because Kevin Johnson is not going to punch back. At least Jason Gavin was going to took a few punches, whereas Johnson's not going to throw a few punches. So I actually don't see that as a step up. What's he going to get from there? At most, Anthony Joshua will probably get a few more rounds, which may, give him something. But otherwise, I think Kevin Johnson doesn't mean anything. I know what's going to happen. He's going to stop it, and then Eddie Hearn's going to say, "Oh yes, he's done something nobody ever else did before," which is fair. But obviously, Eddie Hearn's going to try and fool the casual fans about Anthony Joshua stopping Kevin Johnson. But we'll see what happens. I think when he does step up, I know people are talking about the David Price fight. I think that will be a good fight. I expect Anthony Joshua to win, but it's a fight where Anthony Joshua can get knocked out, and those are the fights that we want to see. We want to see a fight where Anthony Joshua is going to be a bit more careful. He's not going to go in there just taking punches, and he's going to have a bit of safety in his mind. So that would be a good fight if it happens, and when it happens, I think somebody said that he's not going to go down the British title route and all that. I think he will. I think Eddie Hearn will get him the British title.
Do you think they'll make the Dillian White fight, Asif? Do you think that could be the British title fight?
Because we don't know what's happening, because we know Tyson Fury is going to drop the British title soon, and I know that Gary Cornish and Dillian White were supposed to fight for the Eliminator, but I think Gary Cornish team up in Scotland kind of pulled out of it. They want to try and get him a bigger fight down the road, and in their words, they want to try and get him a big title fight, which I think is being quite ambitious at this stage. But we'll see what happens. But I think he will, Dillian White against Joshua, I think that will be a good fight. It's all about, I've got a feeling they're going to try and wait a few years for that to happen. I think potentially Eddie Hearn, the way he thinks, he wants that to be a big mini fight. So I've got a feeling that's not going to happen right away. But we'll see what happens really. But like I said, hopefully with Anthony Joshua, I mean, I like the guy, if he's got potential to dominate the division in the future, that's good. I want to see one dominant champion in the future. So let's see about what happens. But I'd like to see him fight, somebody in the top, 15 by the end of the year.
Throw some names out, Asif. Who do you think? What type of names would you want to put him in with?
I mean, he'd probably win, but someone's gonna give him something. Even like a Manuel Chaw. He'll beat Manuel Chaw, but at least, it's a decent name. You've got Manuel Chaw there, you've got Chris Ariola, which I think we can get him over personally, because Chris Ariola is looking for that type of fight. I don't see why he can't get, obviously you've got your David Price, you've got, even the likes of Kubrat Pulev, he's at 33, 34 now. So I reckon it's a good time to get those guys. And, I think that's the level I believe Anthony Joshua is at. The frustrating thing is he's fighting guys who are like right at the bottom of the league. So which is why they also one-sounded. I know Tony Thompson as well. I think that's a perfect fight for him. Tony Thompson, easy fight to make. He'll come to England. And obviously if he beats him, then that is a sin. People might say, well, Tony Thompson is old, but he's beaten, David Price twice, he's beaten Hollis twice, you know what I mean? So, and even the likes of Carlos Takam, somebody around, people around that level. But just moving on now from Anthony Joshua, like I said, there's not been that much to really talk about with heavyweight division. There's a couple of fights happening next week. You've got, speaking of him, Manuel Chaw fighting on this week, as is I think Artur Szpilka is fighting on PBC or on one of the element cards later on in the month. I've got a feeling they're getting him prepped up for what's his name, and for Deontay Wilder. And Alexander Povetkin against Mike Perez, that's for May 22nd. It's been agreed. I don't think the contract's been signed, but I think that fight's been agreed in principle, and I think both fighters are in deep training for that. That's going to be a very good fight, Alexander Povetkin against Kubra, I think against Mike Perez. It's going to be a really, really close fight. I really hope Povetkin wins the fight.
Perez isn't training with Adam Booth anymore, is he now? I believe he's switched camps. Do you think that he could come in decent shape this time, or what's his training situation?
I think he's being trained by one of the Hispanic coaches in the States. I can't remember what his name is. I think it's Robert Garcia or somebody along them lines. But we'll see, really. I know against Jennings, Perez dominated the first 6 rounds. They gassed out, and that basically cost him the fight, really. It was a very close fight. I remember Perez got unfairly deducted a point in the last round, and that is what cost him the fight, really. So I actually do believe Perez, if he trains very well, he would have beaten Brian Jennings. But because Mike Perez was promoted by Tier 2 Promotions, the people who promote Klitschko, and he also fought on HBO. So I think what they wanted is that they wanted Mike Perez to beat Brian Jennings and then get Vladimir Klitschko to fight Mike Perez on HBO. That was the original plan. But obviously Brian Jennings won. Was also HBO fighter. So, and speaking of Brian Jennings, also he's fighting at Klitschko in 3 weeks' time. So that's going to be a very, very good one-sided fight.
I was going to say, actually, I think regarding Perez, that would have been a decent fight between him and Klitschko. I think one of the problems with Perez is he's just too fat. I mean, his strength and conditioning is pretty poor, isn't it? I think he was eating too much late at night, apparently.
Yeah, he basically, after Price fight, he had a big time off. He fought like once in 2 years, so he had a lot of space in between Price fighter when he dominated Price fighter. And that was actually a good Price fighter that particular day. But we'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, Perez has got a chance. Well, if he beats Alexander Povetkin, he's got a chance against Deontay Wilder. So, that's going to be a good fight. On the undercard of the Vladimir Klitschko fight, you've got this American guy called Charles Martin. He's very, very good. I think a lot of American fighters carry a lot of hype, but this guy's pretty good. He's a southpaw, and I think he's a pretty good fighter I want to look out for in the future. And also on the undercard, just taking a step back from the heavyweight, you've got Roman Gonzalez, the WBC flyweight champion. So he's fighting on the undercard of the Klitschko fight, and it's good to see him on HBO. I think he's got about 4 fights contracted to HBO. So hopefully we can see him fight. He's fighting Edgar Sosa, a top-ranked flyweight fighter, and after that, hopefully get the fight against Estrada. So that will be good. And this Amir Khan thing with Eddie Hearn and Kell Brook, I think. If I'm honest, if Amir Khan, it's all this thing about Eddie Hearn said he doesn't want David Pass to have a payday and all stuff like that. But I think if Amir Khan can stop Kell Brook getting a payday, I'm happy with that. At the end of the day, what goes around comes around. And did somebody say that Donny's not a big fan of Vladimir Klitschko?
Donny, I don't know, is he or not? Anybody else know?
It would be.
Are you not a fan of Vladimir Klitschko, Dave?
Absolutely not.
Why not? What's wrong with Vlad?
Sorry, I got your bloody name wrong. Dave.
David's not a fan of Vladimir. What's wrong with Vlad, Dave? Why does he annoy you?
He's a bum. Or at least he gets knocked out by bums. Plus, I believe he's on the roids. And he fights crap. I mean, people were defending him earlier about the Leapai thing.
Doesn't Floyd Mayweather fight crap, though? Doesn't Floyd Mayweather fight crap? Let's be honest, that fight against Pacquiao is going to be a
I don't like Floyd either. But no.
Hold on, Dave. Dave, make your point first before anybody responds. Go ahead, Dave. Release the hate. People
were defending Vlad for facing Leapai earlier in the Mixler chat because he was a mandatory. But if a sanctioning body is going to make a guy like Leapai the mandatory, is that belt worth holding? It certainly doesn't change his resume. It doesn't make him any better. He's fighting crap.
But Vladimir Klitschko's goal is to get all 4 belts. You can't knock a guy for having a goal in his life. You know what I mean? That's his goal.
I just did knock him though, so I can.
I don't know how you can say that. I don't know how you can say Klitschko's chin. He hasn't been knocked out in 11 years.
Exactly.
It's a long time.
He got hurt by a jab off of Pulev.
You didn't get hurt off a jab, man. Bloody hell. Bloody hell, man. Seriously, not off a jab.
You're upsetting us, Steve.
Shook him right down to his boots.
Yes, he got knocked down, and it's not the same jab that knocked him down and gave him a 1 count. Yeah, that's being hurt. Getting knocked down is being hurt. Getting pushed on the face is not being hurt, man. Seriously.
Once Vitaly gave him the roids, it helped him out.
He's got an 80-odd% percentage knockout in head-to-head. How's that not? Why is that boring? Yeah, he's got one of the highest knockout ratios in heavyweight history. Yeah, he's boring.
A bunch of those knockouts are just like guys falling to the floor exhausted after he holds them for like 10 rounds.
Who beats him then, Dave? Who in the current heavyweight climate? Hang on, Asif. Who beats him, Dave, in the current heavyweight climate before we let Asif go? Who beats Klitschko?
Tony Bellew.
Yeah, that's my case, man. You know, if you chat like that, then, you know...
Yes, Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury will beat him.
And what's going to happen when they beat Tyson Fury or Tyson Fury's a bum? He was shit anyway. That's what's going to happen.
Also,
that's what you're going to say. That's what you're going to say.
Huey Fury will knock him out in 2 rounds.
I know. There's one guy that's going to be Vladimir Klitschko. One guy. Woo! Well, that guys, I'm out.
Asif, thanks very much. All the best. We'll speak to you again.
Golden.
Bye. Asif, controversial as ever. Getting stuck into David Lowe back there. That's the way it goes. Don't think we've got any more callers, have we, Kurt?
I think Kurt's gone.
Oh, has Kurt gone, has he? Oh, Kurt's had enough, let me. Even Kurt's bailed out. That's how bad it's getting this week. Anyway,
It must have been his connection. It was shit because everything just turned alright, wasn't it?
I think so.
Kurt was bogging us down.
He's stealing his neighbour's internet again.
Don't worry. Anyway, we've lost Kurt. The only trouble is I think we might not be able to have the famed Bellew of the Week intro. We've got plenty of Bellew of the Week questions, but we might not be able to have the intro. I'll get back to you on that, whether that's the case or not, but we'll still be able to run the feature, so don't worry about that. Asif was our one and only caller this week, as far as I'm aware, so we're going to be moving on to the remainder of the Twitter questions. As long as everybody's happy enough with that, we shall proceed. And we have a question from Paul, our good friend Paul. I think he rang in last week, actually, ANZ90. Adam, you're still with us, aren't you?
Yep.
Just about and no more by the sound of it. It's going to be me answering these questions on my own at this rate. Andy, come back next week, all is forgiven. Anyway, Adam, why are the majority of the fighters who train at MGM looking terrible? Simmons is another one who got beaten pretty easily.
Yeah, it was a point that I forgot to bring up, to be honest. We've had, I think, first of all, Seamus Macklin is stealing a living, and he's got a terrible haircut to boot. But yeah, it's not going great. There's quite a few gone over there, that have come up short. You know, they're going for the weather, and it's not really paying off, but it's kind of disjointed because there's not just one trainer. I think Simmons trains with Derry Matthews, and is it Danny Vaughan? I think the trainer's called. So
yeah, Danny Vaughan. He just signed up Jamie Conlon actually, so he's over
all right,
there.
Cool. Yeah. And I know that Seamus Macklin operates out of there as well, and then Billy Joe, when he goes over, I think takes obviously Jimmy Tibbs with him. So there's not just one trainer connected to the gym, but as a strategy and a philosophy, it's very much showing mixed results at the moment, shall we say.
Okay, fair enough. Alex, this one comes in from our old friend Rocco _619. Do you think that if Frankie Gavin fights badly in this IBF Eliminator, that they should both wear loaded gloves, as neither can punch?
Yeah, I mean, just give them a load of bricks in their fists and we'll have a bit of fun.
Timmy won't need the loaded gloves. He'll be able to stop Gavin without them.
Yeah, I mean, Timmy's levels above Gavin, really, and he's got a decent dig on him, to be fair. Gavin, I think, just can't be asked, and even if he could punch hard, I don't think he'd be asked about throwing that punch anyway. So, yeah, on the subject of that fight, I don't even think that fight will happen. But there we go.
Okay. Paul, this one comes from Declan Taylor at Deck Taylor. After last night's poor show, what odds can the panel give me that Adam dreamt of holding Eddie and telling him it would be okay?
Adam's the expert when it comes to the odds, but he'd have to do it again next week because that Leeds show looks absolutely abysmal. I mean, it's another one that on paper just looks terrible. So I think even Adam will admit that last night wasn't great, and I think when we come to next Sunday, he'll be saying that last night again wasn't great. I think there's been the first 4 or 5 months from Matchroom this year have been absolutely shit, and that May 30th show will probably it's been designed to sort of help you forget about 2015's happened at all.
Well, talking of next week's show, Tommy, I don't know if you're going to be tuning in with any great enthusiasm, but we have a question from Joshua Bernal, at J Bernal, and he goes one step further than Paul, and he says, could next Saturday's show possibly be the worst ever broadcasted, and is it worth my Sky subscription?
Well, it can't be any worse than last night's show, can it?
You don't think?
I think the whole...
It's horrible. It's company of respect for Matchroom. This is a better card that the next month, but what they're going to do is they're going to stick Kilbrook on it and make it pay-per-view, you know, it's... They've given us nothing, they need to give us more than this.
I think the whole card was worse because at least last night's show, like I said, had competitive fights. The whole card had, the Gethin fight shouldn't have been competitive, and it was absolute A-side dross. I think Hull was worse than last night.
So you think it's scraping the barrel and they're all just trying to be less worse than the previous one, Paul? I mean, is it that the sort of level we've got to?
Yeah, but then again, I bet the viewing figures were great, and like I said, they sold more than 5,000 tickets last night. So, I mean, what is the answer? I don't know, but I think the Matchroom shows seem to fall under those two categories of absolute dross or lots of great names in one-sided fights. Every now and again, like we got on May the 30th coming up, they're actually going to put on some great well-matched 50-50 fights. The problem is it's one every 4 or 5 shows. And it's the amount of money they're getting and they're putting into the fights. They should be, and their stable's massive. They should be giving us better than the crap we've had for the last few months.
It's almost like they've got too many shows and too many stable fighters. You know, they're just chucking them out willy nilly instead of any thought going behind it. To be fair, but yeah, they have been struggling. And the worry is that if they keep throwing up dross like Hull, you know, last night was, and with you, Paul, 50-50, not too bad. Next week looks terrible. When they do put an half-decent card on, i.e. May the 30th, next thing you know, pay-per-view.
Yeah, there's no in-between.
Yeah, there's no in-between. Exactly.
And if you look at the shows...
Sorry, mate, carry on.
I was going to say, if you look at like May the 9th, for example, they've announced a load of names. So you've got your Fire, you've got Macklin, you've got Rose. Who are they fighting? I mean... It'll get 2 weeks before, they'll be stuck in with a load of crap, and that will be a show with good names and poor fights. And they've got nothing on the schedule. In all these shows they're spreading themselves so thin across different cities, they just can't seem to match good fights together. And like Adam says, anything half decent will be whacked on pay-per-view anyway.
Mm-hmm. When we had Eddie Owen, he told us that things were going to get better, there was going to be more competitive fights, but do you really see it that way? I think it's actually got worse since he was on. These cards are unacceptable to me.
Yeah, last year's was a lot. You look at even like the whole show from last year. If you want to take the sort of the barrel of the cheap events they put on, much more competitive fights. If you look at everything up to Wembley, it was fantastic. Since Wembley, through injuries, pullouts, and just bad matchmaking, we've had 8 or 9 months of dross on Sky, and it really just needs to turn around. Or just put Joshua on it and save a show, and then that does the job. That's pretty much what the plan is at the moment. That's what they're going to do on May the 9th. Frankie Gavin will come off that show. Anthony Joshua will be on it against some absolute no mark, and it'll probably do 4 times the viewing figures it would if Frankie was on. And, you know, Sky will be happy, and all the Birmingham fans will think it's brilliant because they've seen the next coming of Muhammad Ali, Jesus Christ, Bruce Lee.
What's going to change, though, Paul? Does anything have to change? I mean, what would be the tip of the iceberg for Sky to turn around and say this isn't good enough? Are they happy with what they're seeing?
All they care about is numbers. So if the shows pull in poor numbers like the Hull show reportedly did, they'll start to take concern. If the shows do great numbers, they won't give a toss because it's cheaper. These shows, that Newcastle show will have cost Matchroom a very small amount to put together. Sky won't have paid a big amount for it as part of their contract. They'll be happy as long as the numbers are coming in. If the numbers aren't coming in, then they'll demand a change. And there's also the fact that with the pay-per-view, because pay-per-view numbers have been so strong recently, why wouldn't they go back to that again? So the business model for Sky, I think, is working at the moment. But like I said, we don't care about the business model. We want good fights, and we're just not getting them.
David, this one's coming in from Jack Bauer _47. Is Froch harming his reputation for fighting all comers by swerving DeGale, Hopkins, Triple G, Ward, etc.?
Well, we don't know for sure that he's swerving all of those guys. I think he's proclaimed interest in not facing Golovkin, which, I mean, I don't particularly blame him for. Golovkin's a middleweight. But, you know, he's on the verge of retirement now, so I don't know if he's going to or not, but he's definitely thinking hard about it. He wanted that Chavez fight. Heyman's obviously protecting Chavez now. So, you know, his all-comers thing has been proven enough times. That's who he is. He fought everybody, so, you know, forget about DeGale. He fought the guy who beat DeGale, which is more than anyone could say for Joe Calzaghe.
Dave, that's an absolutely sublime answer.
Well, I'm going to put a bit of balance on that, I suppose, about Carl Froch. Despite building a career of fighting all-comers and so forth, he has done very well in doing that. I think that binning your belt against the likes of James DeGale is atrocious. I think avoiding Golovkin because apparently he's not pay-per-view when, you know, you'd rather fight Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who's just a waste of space and a pothead, is atrocious. I think that avoiding the likes a rematch with Andre Ward because he schooled you the first time despite always talking this warrior nonsense and how much you want to avenge your losses and all this shit, and all of that is atrocious. So he should just shut the fuck up and quietly go into retirement unless he fights one of those guys.
I think what we have to say, Alex, is that Carl Froch is in semi-retirement and has been since, you know, May the 31st last year, and, you know, everyone's making a big point of him wanting to choose his next destination, if you like, whether that be Vegas or the City Ground, and he ain't going to change for you or I or many other people, so just have to accept that's the score. And I still think that he's more likely to retire than to fight again, but that's just my opinion.
I never understood that saying semi-retired. You're either retired or you're not.
But yeah, but when is a boxer under the age of 40 ever actually retired? You know, David A. You know, way back. We're going way back. You know, when are they? Even if they say they're retired, do we ever believe them? Unless they're in I nearly said something stupid then. Unless they're in a bad medical condition, you know, then they're not retired, are they?
I think the problem is difficult with Froch. The problem is he vacated the belt for DeGale.
Bins the belt.
Yeah, bin the belt or officially vacated the belt on the premise that he had a plan. And I'm not fighting James DeGale because I'm fighting this person. And he's not fighting anybody. He's not going to fight anybody this side of the summer. So what is he doing? He's going to be out of the ring for a year. For someone that age, that inactivity won't be good for him. For me, if Froch turned around and said he wouldn't fight again, I'd take that. I wouldn't complain because I think the options that he would take aren't great. He's not going to fight Golovkin for obvious reasons, and he's passed up on a potentially great British fight with DeGale. So I don't think we'll see him fight again.
Okay.
Quite measured views on Froch for a change.
Yeah,
tonight, yeah.
Oh, we're getting okay. There's no hate tonight, Adam.
He's a
some
prick. I
feeling
can't
love.
fucking stand him. I hope he gets fucking run over.
And just like that, we're back to normal.
Yeah.
Okay, right. David, moving on. We have a question from Box Tip Advice at box_tip. Do you think Danny Garcia should be stripped of his titles? This is the second fight in a row without defending them. Do you think he should be stripped?
Well, I mean, it really matters how everyone, each individually views it, because each title is a piece of paper anyway that really doesn't mean much. The fact that he's held on to them this long has been silly enough. I mean, I don't know why he still has them now. But yeah, he should be stripped. Peterson should have been stripped after he got knocked out by Matisse. But ultimately, who really cares? It's a bunch of paper belts that, if you want to say, like, I guess there's one that's sort of recognized above the others, sort of the ring title, even though it's gone down in estimation in the past couple of years, especially since Golden Boy took over the magazine. You still sort of recognize that as a meaningful one, so I'd say let's take the ring 140 title away from him.
Okay, Tommy, at Rocco_619, our old friend Rocco again. Does Frankie Gavin need to stop using John McDermott's strength and conditioning trainer?
I was quite vocal when we got to it. I don't think he's a welterweight, but that's the way his plan goes. I was actually getting a bit of stick on Twitter today about Frankie Gavin. I see that he's a stylistic nightmare for him to look good at, and I mean anybody in the world, they're not going to look good against Frankie. That doesn't mean to say that I think he can beat anybody, but he's not a good guy to look good against, is he? But to me, Frankie's a £140 fighter, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely not at his natural weight, is he? I don't think. Yeah. Adam, I know you've got a question for Alex, but before you ask your Twitter question, another one coming in from Rocco. Billy Joe Saunders versus Carson Jones. Does Billy Joe Saunders deserve a pass on criticism for this one if it's just a stay busy fight before Lee versus Quillen? He did fight Eubank after all.
Yeah, he's put himself in a difficult position. Well, he's put himself in a profitable but difficult position, Billy Joe. I think it's a complete fudge job Harry's not fighting on the American undercard as was promised at the time. He's took some sort of step aside money for Quillen Lee, and then Warren was saying, yeah, he'll fight on the undercard. They've dreamed up some injury that wasn't even stated, I don't think, by Warren last week. It was called a niggle, or a slight injury, nothing, was it arm, leg, eyeball, whatever, wasn't stated. That's a fudge job. Carson Jones, I mean, at least he won last time, credible, but we saw what happened, he's I don't know whether moving middleweight, we've seen Carson Jones cause problems for fighters at welterweight. This is obviously going to take place at least middleweight. It's a sell, but it's okay as a keep busy fight. Yeah, I'll take it.
And what's your Twitter question for Alex?
Alex, what did you think of Carl Froch as a person, as a fighter, when he was taking on the likes of Jermaine Taylor on the road, etc.? Basically, the underlying point of my question is, has the Eddie Hearn / Sky Sports hype train ruined his personality?
I don't know. I mean, we didn't really see much of his personality before the Sky hype train, really. I mean, he wasn't very outspoken. He wasn't really given the platform to talk about himself as much as he has done now. Maybe his knobhead personality has only developed recently because he's attained this, greater status, and he's only turned into a prick because he's had these wins. But I liked him. I thought he did very well. Obviously, the Taylor fight was an excellent watch and one of the highlights of his career and one of the highlights of the last decade, really. It was an excellent win, but he's still a total knobhead, and I don't know. Like you say, it could be part of the hype, but he seems to hype himself these days, and he doesn't need the help of Sky and Hearn to back him up because he just talks out of his arse so much. Yeah,
I'm the first to admit, is when you put a microphone in front of his face, it never ends well. And that interview after the first fight with Groves, directly after the fight, was terrible, and probably what, if not triggered, definitely poured all sorts of fuel on the hate train. And I can accept that. But I mean, if he was to take his, take someone who's completely alien to boxing and put on paper what he's done. I know he's lost along the way in that, but he is quite impressive. But he's done, himself and Mr. Hearn have done a lot to kind of trash that outlook on paper in recent times.
Okay, Adam, thank you. Alex, thanks for answering that one. Paul at Davis Lee 1 asks, why doesn't Eddie Hearn just offer Bradley a shot at Brook if he's interested in an IBF eliminator? There's a big pay-per-view fight in it, in my opinion.
Well, Brook would have to travel, and it's part of the plan, quite obviously, to try and build Brook over here before they look to send him abroad. And it's a bloody hard fight, so why take that fight when there are ranked opponents he could fight that are easier? He could fight a Brandon Rios, and that would still be classed as a decent fight. And Brandon Rios has 1/10 of the ability that Timothy Bradley has. So I don't think they'd look to make that at all. I don't see them rushing to make it, certainly. Bradley's in the real sort of who needs him right now. And also, from Bradley's point of view, he's picking up serious wedge fighting guys over in America. And again, he's in the same position as Brook. He can make money fighting guys who aren't as good as Brook. So it doesn't make sense for either of them to jump in with a fight right now.
Tommy at JackBauer_47 asks, who will or should Brook fight on the 30th of May? How does a heavyweight pay-per-view go down? AJ Kingpin is unlikely to be a classic. What will be the next Sky pay-per-view classic? Sorry, Tommy, I'll just add that one in again for you because I made a bit of a mess of that. It's sort of all done in tech speak. What will be the next Sky pay-per-view, and who should Brook fight on May the 30th?
The fight I'd like to see, just as a boxing fan, would be against Tim Bradley, but obviously that's not going to happen. There's not going to be enough money to make that fight. But to be honest, as I keep busy fight, they're talking Frankie Gavin. I actually didn't mind it. I don't mind the fight. I think Kell Brook will win it, and he'll win it handsomely. But I'm not ready to. I'm not ready to write Frankie Gavin off yet. I don't think he's a bad fighter. I don't mind that fight as a keep busy fight.
As long as Brook don't fight someone shocking on May the 30th, I think it's it's a positive that he's wanting to. He's missed time. He's got stabbed for whatever reason. He's missed time, and he wants to keep active. We give other fighters, not non-British fighters, a pass for fighting below world level contenders with a world title on the line. Like Golovkin, not comparing Brook to Golovkin, but if he wants to keep busy, fair dues. And again, he'll be judged on his next fight, in the summer if it is Rios, fair dues.
It's not realistic to think that Kell can fight somebody right at the top level in the next fight. There's obviously not going to be 2 or 3 million on the table to make a fight like that, so it's not going to happen, is it?
Yeah.
Alex, staying on that subject, actually, from Rian Scalia, how much of a big deal is Kell's opponent for May the 30th, considering the circumstances of who's available, the IBF rankings, the time frame, etc.? How much of a big deal is the opponent?
It depends if this is what makes the difference between pay-per-view or not. I think that the card was going to be pay-per-view without Cal anyway, but I think he's being added because it's some sort of justification. But the fact that he's being put on it and is almost certainly that it's not going to be a big name purely because he doesn't have a long training camp. He ideally you want like 10, 12 weeks or whatever. So I really can't expect anyone decent. It will probably be someone like Antonin Deckery or something like that, or someone really sort of obscure in the IBF rankings. It could be decent. There's going to be a lot of Twitter and social media arguments about it, considering the beef between Khan and Brook at the moment in their opposition. And I think Brook will probably take some stick because Khan's recently took that Algieri stick. So I think that whatever happens, he'll take it. But I'm always for fighters just fighting more often and more frequently. Maybe not to help sell a show to be more expensive or to be hyped up to complete nonsense bollockry, but there you go. I hope it's someone decent, and I hope that they aren't acting like it's someone important when it most likely won't be.
Final Twitter question this week, and thanks very much everybody for sending them in. There were a lot of questions this week, and it's great to see the panel getting stuck into them. Dave, you're on the spot a little bit with this one, so if anybody else does want to jump in, by all means. But this one's for you, David Loback, from @JakeBurnsMFC. We talk about dream matchups, but what would be the worst matchups at each weight or a weight, whatever can come into your mind? For example, Beaker versus Chilemba at light heavyweight.
How about Vlad versus his usual stuff? For cruiserweight, I don't know enough about each division to see who's like the worst, most boringest guy in this division, so I'll just give like some bad matchups. How about the current version of what's his name, that British dude?
Frankie Gavin, Bradley Skeet,
No, the cruiserweight.
Cruiserweight, sorry.
Tony Bellew, Abel McKenzie.
Afolabi.
Yeah, Afolabi. The current version of him is garbage to watch, unfortunately. Let's put him in with the new cruiserweight, Edwin Rodriguez. You have a huge mess. Light heavyweight, I don't know, just watch any fight with Adonis Stevenson and the fights he's been taking lately. Garbage. Super middleweight.
Darrell against Ward.
DeGale Ward, yep, that's what I was saying. I mean, that's actually a good matchup, but it's going to be painful.
I said Darrell. Darrell against Ward.
Darrell against Ward. Well, DeGale against Ward too, though. I mean, their styles will even mesh worse, I think, because they're going to be heading straight for each other, hugging all night. So, middleweight, Cotto versus anybody, because he's not a middleweight and he's not the champion. Light middleweight.
There's only one fight at light middleweight. It's got to be Austin Trout against Carlos Molina, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Austin Trout against anybody.
That's horrific, Tommy.
Maddie would love that.
Lara versus Clotty would be pretty horrible. Or Lara versus anybody. Oh, horrendous.
You guys throw them in too. I mean, this is a long question. Anyone for welterweight, who would you put in?
Frankie Gavin, Tim Bradley was a good shout. I think that would be absolutely
We've already
terrible.
seen it. Gavin versus Skeet.
Yeah, Gavin Skeet's bad.
It's a brilliant fight, according to Frank Warren. Junior welter. Well, how about yeah, we've seen that too. Danny Garcia, Rod Salka. This is like as bad as they could make.
So they are making these bad fights then, Dave, basically.
The sport is in the shitter. I mean, that's what we're getting, unfortunately.
So who's the Miguel Vasquez opponent at lightweight then?
Yeah, lightweight. There you go. We saw that too. Mickey Bay, Miguel Vasquez. Everything I can think of.
Yeah.
Is there any more? If anybody can think of any
about
more.
Zhao Ximing versus that guy he fought last. First fight that week. That was god awful. And it should have been known that it was going to be a terrible matchup too, because in both guys' styles.
But Bellew Chilemba would be pretty terrible. If you ever thought of putting those two in the ring together, that'd be shocking.
I didn't hate that as much as a lot of people did. At least they were both trying to win.
Not in the first fight.
Were they?
You know, I thought Chilemba beat him in the first. I thought.
I'll probably get slated for this, but I think Bellew actually won both these fights. Close fights. And there's no bias involved there because Tony's hardly my favourite fighter. Actually, I think he did win the fight.
Bernard Hopkins, Andre Ward, that'd be horrible.
Yeah, that would be. How would I choose which one I want to win? Because I love them both so much.
I think you've thrown a fair few in. That was a good, adequate response, Dave. So if nobody else has got any to throw in that they can think of, no? No.
Malignaggi versus Gavin. Gavin versus a lot of fighters, unfortunately. And I'm a big Gavin fan. Yeah, I'm a big Gavin fan, but there's a lot of horrible matchups out there for him.
Well, we're at super featherweight, weren't we? Who would we put Bully Dib against at super featherweight? He's god awful, man, isn't he? Javier Fortuna, maybe.
Well, didn't he fight Gradovic at one point anyway for one of the titles?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Lost to him twice. The second time was just a beatdown.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Excellent stuff, lads. That was a brilliant selection.
Okay, what's the value of the week? It's gonna happen, mate. We're gonna do it. And when we do it, it's gonna be vicious, mate. I hear a man dregs with the weights. Now, you fucking rat! Okay, what's the value of the week?
I think we have 10 on the list this week of Values of the Week. Before Kurt left us, he said it was a particularly strong lineup, so we're looking forward to these ones. So I'm going to read them out, and then if any of the panel members have any to add in, we'll add them in, and then we'll go through and tick them off and decide who is going to be the esteemed Value of the Week. So first of all, we have good old Eddie Hearn on our list. I think Eddie's going to be featured quite a bit, actually. He's got a bit of hate tonight, poor old Eddie. So, talking about Anthony Joshua's injury last night, Eddie said he had a little thing called a stress fracture in the back. Most people might not even walk again. Was that a Mike Tyson stress fracture, Alex? Was that a back?
I think so. It was obviously very devastating. I mean, Joshua, I was worried for him at some point, so I genuinely thought that he could have just been crippled if he tried too hard against Jason Gavin there. So, I'm glad he's fine.
Yeah, we'll pray for Anthony. It's good. I mean, just think if Gavin had thrown a punch, just what could have happened last night? It's unthinkable. So we'll move on to number 2. We have one from Spencer Fearon. He's actually featured on Value of the Week before. He's a regular contributor, and he says that Nicholas Walters is from my hometown of Jamaica.
Oh, fuck, man.
So that's a good one from Spencer. He's put himself forward well. Thanks very much, Spencer. Number 3 on the list is from Anthony Joshua, the man himself. He said, Wilder fought Jason Gavin ahead of his world title fight, so that shows how highly Gavin, is regarded. How can you argue with that, lads? To be honest, that's pretty sensible logic, I would say.
Pure facts right there. It's pure facts.
Well, I mean, it's sensible logic compared to number 4. Anthony went on to say that Jason Gavin was a defensive puzzle. I think we touched upon that one earlier.
Possibly the strongest lineup ever.
You liking that one? You liking a bit of Anthony Joshua, Tommy?
I think he's a walk-away winner with it this week, isn't he?
Well, you never know. Number 5, Julio Cesar Chavez. Speaking about Chavez Jr., he's a better fighter than I was.
That's awesome.
I think they've been sharing the bong, them two.
He really does love his son.
It was a bad translation. It was a better eater than I was.
Excellent stuff. Number 6, Paulie Malignaggi. You mentioned him just now, Paul. Actually, he's made his way onto the list, so fair play to him. Amir Khan and Kell Brook are better than Mayweather and Pacquiao.
Malignaggi is the most annoying person in boxing right now. When you watch him on telecast, he does it all safe and says all the right things. The minute he gets on the crap that Paulie Malignaggi has, the absolute nonsense. 1 minute Pacquiao's on drugs, he's on CBS. What do you think of Pacquiao? He's a great fighter. Hate the man. He's just such a mouthpiece. Crap.
He's so excellent though on the mic. He's really good. I mean, it's not just his ability to stay unbiased on the mic and his ability to talk fast and speak clearly, but he really has great technical analysis of the fights, and he does it really quickly too, which is I really appreciate. I just watched a few cards that aren't big cards because he's not on the many big shows lately. But he was on the Showbox with Gary Russell last week. He did a really good job, you know. But whenever he's off the mic, I mean, he's biased. He's full of crap.
He has to break the fights down. What I've noticed with Malignaggi is if he's been in the ring with somebody, or if he's fought somebody that's he's lost to somebody that's beaten somebody, he'll try and hype that fighter up, won't he? Tries to hit him up. Well, that's what he's doing with Amir Khan. Obviously, Khan kicked his ass, so obviously he's the best fighter in the world.
Well, speaking of Amir Khan, actually, Tommy, that's a nice little segue onto number 7. And Amir, as we know, is fighting Chris Algieri, and he's had a bit to say about his opponent. He said that Algieri just fell short against Manny Pacquiao. But he fell all right.
Certainly failed, yeah.
He was half right.
It was a really close fight.
Apparently,
I love Amir, but sometimes he's just fucking not open his mouth at all.
Just a few hours before we went on, apparently Amir Khan has come out and said that the Chris Algieri fight isn't confirmed or something. He's been backtracking over it. he's been saying he did it. I don't know if he said he was doing it as a wind-up, but he said he's backtracking over a fan reaction or something. Maybe
a number of sources on Twitter confirm that that Khan has really been affected by all the hate after the Algeria announcement. Like, he's upset about, and he's trying to push it off on Heyman.
I think what's happened is Broner's his number one opponent, and Adrian Broner's actually asking for a catch weight for a fight. So Amir's came out and he's mentioned Algieri's name, trying to force Broner's hand, and obviously it's backfired on him, hasn't it? But yeah. That's a fucking stupid comment, wasn't it?
Okay, Amir, we'll leave you there at number 7. Coming in hot on Amir's heels at number 8, we have Eddie Hearn again on why they picked Jason Gavin. We looked at some durable Eastern Europeans, but Jason's just got great banter.
Woo! He just admits it, he doesn't care.
You liking that one, Dave? Do you think a bit of honesty goes far here?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't really hold this against him, but it is a funny comment. It's a worthy contender for Belly of the Week.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is a funny comment, but number 9, actually, I wouldn't class this as a funny comment. I think it's a bit sick, actually, from the man himself, Tony Bellew. Sakio Bika reminds me of Matthew Saad Mohammed.
Oh, God.
In what way?
He is black, isn't he?
A true historian.
What are you saying, Paul?
I think that's all they have in common. They're black. That's pretty much the extent of it, really. They don't fight the same. They haven't got similar records. But to be fair to Bellew, he sat there for 4 hours on his own. You know, and he said 1 or 2 really stupid things, which is pretty good going for him.
Mm-hmm. Well,
he's been learning on the set of Creed.
When he's not been punching people who are working on the set of Creed.
Allegedly. Right, okay. Number 10, Eddie Hearn again. It's great to see Eddie on the list here. It's only his 3rd entry as well. He's done pretty well to keep it down. Eddie Hearn on Twitter before Sky went live. Huge night of boxing on Sky Sports tonight. Alex, do we have a number 11? Do you want to throw this Randall Bailey in? One in.
Oh no, that was just someone suggesting worst fights on Twitter before we started. Someone suggested Randall Bailey versus Frankie Gavin.
Oh right, okay. Sorry, I thought you were throwing
a horrific fight.
It would be a horrific fight, wouldn't
it? It wasn't something that he said, but can we just put Jason Gavin's entire week tourism trip around Newcastle and getting on trains as a Belly of the Week?
Yeah, I'll support that.
I've never seen someone so pleased to be on a train going to the northeast. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. It was like, look, this is what I'm doing. And he gets to the weigh-in, looks at Joshua, shits himself, and then gets beaten up. I thought that was shocking. Shocking use of Twitter.
He's just came over here for a holiday, hasn't he?
Yeah, he did. He's got a stamp on his passport. He's happy, and he's got to see Newcastle. He's probably at the game this afternoon. I mean, he's all about the northeast, Jason Gavin.
Okay, then we'll go around the panel. Excuse me, and
Steve, I've got some contenders.
Yeah, go on ahead. Add them in.
Right, so. Sakio Bika for saying he believes he has the power to knock out Adonis Stevenson. Sky Sports Mobile, I don't know whether you read their little news pieces, but basically said Andre Ward was the first man to give Cole Fletcher a loss on his record. That award obviously went to Mikhail Kessler. Kurt Ward for saying on YouTube the other day at the end of the video, hopefully we can get Adam back on so you can hate on him a bit. Chris Eubank Jr. in press conference to Billy Joe Saunders, this is a world title, come and get it. That's in regard to his WBA interim title. And my one was Khan for saying Algeria just came up short. Oh, I've got one more. Frankie Gavin for saying he hopes to fight Timothy Bradley on the main night show in Birmingham.
Right, okay. I think I've got all them. Who was the one before? Who was the interim title one you mentioned, Adam? I didn't get that one down.
Eubank Jr. said to Billy Joe Saunders, this is a world title, come and get it.
Right, okay, fair enough. Lovely job, Lee.
I've just seen someone's just tweeted Alex saying it has to be Gavin for saying he'd be heavyweight champion if fights were only 3 rounds.
For fuck's sake.
I didn't hear him say that, but that's a good one.
So who are we attributing that one to, Paul? Sorry.
Jason Gavin said that.
Jason
apparently.
Gavin again. Oh, we've already got Jason down. Yeah.
Michael Scott will be world champion in fight 23 rounds. The prize fighter legend.
Well, Kurt would say here, Audley Harrison is the unified prize fighter champion.
Audley's the king of the 3-rounders, isn't he?
He is.
Anybody else you want to add in? Because once we've wrapped up Bellew of the week, we're going to have a quick 5 to 10 on Lee Quillin and Garcia Peterson, just to put the house in order regarding that. So, but we'll obviously get the Bellew of the week out the way first. Any other entries?
I think about 25 is enough.
Well, if we could keep it down to 25, think of about nearly 30. Nearly 30. It's written down here. Right, I'm going to try and an overview, disappeared there, of what we have. And then we'll go around each member of the panel and we'll tick you off whichever one you want to choose. So first of all, we had Eddie Hearn on Joshua's injury regarding the stress fracture. Spencer Fearon with his questionable geography regarding Jamaica. Joshua himself, a couple from Joshua for the defensive puzzle and for the Deontay Wilder comment. Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. saying that his son is a better fighter than he is. Paulie Malignaggi for his comments on Khan Brook being better than Mayweather-Pacquiao. Amir Khan for his Chris Algieri comments. Eddie Hearn, couple from Eddie, one about the Eastern Europeans and the other one about his huge night of boxing. We're throwing in Tony Bellew, the man himself, as well, for his Sakio Bika comments about Matthew Saad Mohammed. Jason Gavin for generally riding up and down Newcastle in a train. Sakio Bika himself. Kurt Ward, throw Kurt Ward in there as well for his comments. Although I think, Adam, that's maybe a bit of a biased one on your behalf, is it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. and the fact that Kurt's not here to defend himself makes it even better.
Yeah, Kurt's disappeared. He jumped off this ship a long time ago before it hit the iceberg. Frankie Gavin, Amir Khan, Chris Eubank Jr., and I failed to write down number 17. It's blank, so apologies about that. We'll go around everybody one by one. Adam Smith, who is your Bellew of the week?
It might not be the worst on there, but I'm voting tactically for Amir Khan about Chris Algieri because I don't think Khan's been hated on enough this week in the pod, so I'm bringing hate to the table. Amir Khan for saying that Chris Algieri just came up short against Manny Pacquiao.
Lovely jubbly, Adam. Thank you very much. Alex, what about you?
This is a tough one. This is a very difficult one to decide. It's a very strong roster, obviously. I'm quite tempted to go with Spencer Theron's just because it's obviously the most funny. Come back to me, actually. I need a bit of time to think.
Okay, Alex, we will come back to you shortly.
That's a duck.
No, we'll be back, Alex, we'll be back. Tommy, what about you?
It's going to be Paul Malignaggi for me saying that Kell Brooker and Amir are better than Floyd and Manny, you know that. Amir is a strong candidate with what he's saying as well, but I think Paulie just sneaks it for him this week, yeah. Paulie Malignaggi.
Okay, we'll chuck one in for Paulie. Paul, what about yourself?
I think any time you describe a 37-year-old who's lost 20 times and been knocked out 10 times as a defensive puzzle, I think you open yourself up for a Bellew of the week. So definitely the comments on Gavin as the defensive puzzle for me.
Gavin as the defensive puzzle. So that's a vote for Anthony Joshua then?
Yes, it's strong vote for Big AJ.
Big AJ, right, you can tell him if he ends up winning. Dave, what about you?
It's a close race for me between Paulie and Khan. I'm going to go for Khan because I agree we kind of overlooked the hate this week for him that he deserves for taking Algieri. Although I want to give a lot of it to Heyman as well because, I mean, that is just the worst out of all the options out there that we discussed as potentially being like acceptable alternatives to Kell Brook. We had like Thurman, Maidana, Bradley, even Juan Manuel Marquez, and he fights Algieri. I mean, that's just even Broner would have been better. I mean, this is just sad.
Okay, Dave, thanks very much. Alex, we'll come to you in a minute. I'm going to put my vote in, actually. I'm going to go for the big man himself. I'm going to try and curry favour with Tony. I'm going to go for his comments regarding Sakio Bika and Matthew Saad Mohammed. I think that was a good one. So Tony gets my vote. Alex, what about yourself?
Yeah, after listening to a few of the other reasons and having to think about it, I've been blinded a little bit by my hate last night for Joshua and the hype, and I think that that is quite prominent, of course, but I think Khan's comments earlier in the week regarding Chris Algieri were absolutely ridiculous, especially considering all the shit that he's been talking about Brooks' opposition in the past. So, Khan saying Algieri come up short against Pacquiao is my value of the week.
Thank you, Alex. So, we got one for Tony, we had one for Paulie Malignaggi, and we had one for Anthony Joshua himself. No votes for Eddie Hearn. He even threw in 4 options this week, and nobody voted for poor old Eddie, but Amir Khan, he's actually ended up with 3 ticks next to his name for his comment. Chris Algieri just fell short against Manny Pacquiao. So for that, Amir, that has earned you the Bellew of the Week. Congratulations, Amir Khan. Well done, Amir. Right, that's the Bellew of the Week done and dusted. It's going towards the 2-hour mark, so we're going to wrap up very shortly. But before we do so and let the panel go off to do whatever it is they're going to do, we're going to have a brief 5 to 10 minute discussion, if we can, about the show coming up next Saturday evening on April the 11th in the Barclays Centre, Brooklyn, New York. We've got Danny Garcia, Lamont Peterson, and Andy Lee, Peter Quillen. It's actually a pretty strong show. Just on the show in general, Paul, before we get stuck into these main events, we've got Victor Postol, Felix Diaz, Errol Spence, Luis Collazo, and Marcus Brown, all sort of undefeated guys in against reasonable levels of opposition. As the show in itself goes, it looks reasonable enough on paper.
You've got
because Victor Postol's been waiting for his shot at Danny Garcia for about 3 years, so they just keep dragging him along, giving him step-aside money and putting him in 10-rounders. But the show's really good. I mean, ignoring the controversy around the world titles, we've already covered that. Garcia and Peterson shouldn't hold belts to me. They should have had them stripped long ago. I think that's a quality fight. Even though it's at a catch weight, I think Garcia does a job on him, but I'm just happy to see Garcia in the ring against sort of world-level opposition. Andy Lee, Peter Quillen, for me, it's a horrible fight for Andy Lee. And the way that Warren talks about Lee Saunders as if it's a given that Lee's going to beat Quillen, I think it's ridiculous. I think Quillen beats Lee. I think he beats him wide. And hopefully we also get to see Errol Spence, because he's on there again. I think Sam Vargas, I think someone might correct me.
Samuel Vargas, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think any time we get to see Errol, I'm pretty pleased with that. It's a strong bill. How much of it we get televised, I'm not really sure, but I think they had to have 2 strong main events. This was the show that was really meant to sort of kick the PBC card off. Thurman and Broner was good, but I think this was the one in terms of quality of matchups that people have got really excited about, so I'm looking forward to it.
I think Louis Colasso's on there as well, isn't he?
He is, yeah. He hasn't got an opponent named yet, Tommy.
Right. The dangerous TBA.
Yeah, the dangerous TBA. Dave, I'm sure you'll be feeling for Lewis, whoever he ends up going in against. But, I mean, you're more interested in this main event, aren't you? Lamont Pedersen against Danny Garcia. You're calling it. What do you mean by that?
Oh, wow. Did I say that? Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where the whole beef with Lamont Pedersen starts. I mean, I had a great deal of respect for him after he took the fight to Khan after being totally outsped and all that. Then it comes out he was cheating, and then they don't take the belt off of him. I mean, what the hell? He's still is that the belt he's still holding as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, he still has that belt after
They took one belt off of him. The WBA took the belt off of him, but the IBF didn't.
Yeah,
that was a disgrace what they done there. That fight should have been a no contest, and no belts should have obviously been given back to Khan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the guy admitted to take the drugs. You know, it's fucking that was absurd.
And I mean, he lost the fight. Yeah, so I mean, he's made for Garcia. I think I'm happy to see that this. I mean, they're not fighting complete bums, but I think the thing about Lamont Pedersen, he always talks himself up as a boxer first, and then he can brawl if he has to. But really, it's the opposite. I mean, he can box all right, but he almost always ends up getting sucked into a brawl, and I think that's how he's more effective at fighting. Against Garcia, though, I mean, it's going to come down to chins and power, and he hasn't got the power or the chin advantage. Garcia's going to counter him with a hook, and it's going to be lights out, I think. He's just going to walk into the wheelhouse and get clocked eventually. So that's how I see that fight going. If he did box, I mean, he could give Garcia problems, but he inevitably always just throws that game plan in the trash. As for Lee Quillen, I mean, Is anybody here not rooting for Andy Lee?
Oh, you've got to pull for Andy Lee. He's a nice guy, isn't he? I just don't think he's going to win the fight. I think. Listen, he's got the power to take. He's got the power to take anybody out. But I think Colin's got good power as well. Colin's just probably a wee bit tougher on him, and I think that's what's going to show him edging out. But I'm firmly behind Andy. I think he's a lovely fella, and I hope he does it. Retains the title.
Well, let's get one thing right about Andy Lee. He's won in his last 2 fights. He's won 1 round. Now he's had 2 stoppage wins, but he lost every round against Jackson and was losing the rounds before he got the knockout. And the only round that I've given him was the stoppage he got over Korobov. He wasn't losing quite badly, but he'd lost every round. So eventually you can't always find that big punch. And I think that Quillen is just a very slick, slippery fighter, and I think everyone wants Andy Lee to win, but I think it's a horror matchup for him, and I think Quillen wins it wide.
After a terrible 2014, Quillen's almost the forgotten man of the middleweight division. I'm not saying he's the best in there by any stretch, but it is a really tough matchup for Lee, and it's good this weekend. And long may it continue with this PBC thing that the 2 co-main events are actually quite close in the betting. I know Declan Taylor really wants me to talk about the betting odds, so gonna do so. Garcia's 4-9 to beat Peterson, and Quillen is a similar price at 2-5 to beat Andy Lee, but I very much agree with Paul. I think this might be one step too far for Andy Lee. The most interesting thing I've just, Dave, I know you mentioned that you think Peterson's going to get caught in the wheelhouse at some point. Garcia KO is 13-5, so nearly 3-1 you can get on a Garcia KO this weekend. Might be attractive to some people.
I think Garcia, just to win it, what were the odds, 4-9? I think I'd expect him to be way shorter than that.
Yeah,
I think Peterson showed what his level was in his last when he fought Matisse. I think Garcia knocks him out, so I think there'll be a lot of people getting on that bet.
Yeah, well, the double Quillen and Garcia doubles, just about even money, so will attract some people. That will.
Alex, do you think that regarding the Andy Lee fight and Peter Quillen, I think that Quillen will win on points, and Lee's best chance is for the knockout. If Quillen doesn't get caught, he wins wide. Do you see it going that way, or do you think that Andy can hang with him boxing wise? Because I think one of the problems with Andy Lee is he does lose a lot of rounds. I mean, I'm not saying he's relying on his power, but that's the way he's had to dig himself out these last fights. And Quillen is definitely a step up, although Quillen could be ring rusty. How do you see it going?
I think that I think he relied more on his power in these last fights because he was going up against possibly, more technical boxers. I'd say that Korobov obviously had a lot of amateur pedigree, and we knew that, he was coming in with that, and they fought in the amateurs before, I believe. And, he had that about him, so Lee probably was looking for a bigger shot, or maybe Lee is just not the same as he was, and he can't box as well as he was, and he's not as conditioned as he was. But I think that Lee is a very good boxer himself, and I don't rate Quillen's boxing ability. I think that we saw him obviously outbox against Undam, even though he won that because he just absolutely hammered him to the ground.
Yeah.
Gabe Rosado was outboxing Peter Quillen, for fuck's sake, and Gabe Rosado is absolute shite. And yeah, he's just awful, Gabe Rosado, and he was winning that fight for me before it got stopped, which was a bullshit stoppage in the first place. So I think that Lee's got a very good chance of outboxing if he chooses to do so, but I don't know if he still has the ability to do so, or the confidence to do so, and if he's got the chin to do so. Obviously, I think that Lee is probably more suited to 154 than he is 160. I don't think he's very big for 160, so it'll be interesting to see if he can take Quillen's power, which is something we know he's got. But I wouldn't rule out his chances to outbox Quillen, certainly, or knock him out.
They're actually kind of similar fighters in that both guys sort of rely on their power to get them out of deficits, like the same way Quillen did against Endam. Lee's been doing the last couple of fights.
Yeah, I think one of the problems with Lee as well is sometimes he looks very ragged, even though when he's not particularly hurt. I remember in this fight with Anthony Fitzgerald in Belfast, there was times when he was sort of leaning on the ropes and he was trying to hug on to his man and pushing forward, and his hair was flying about, even though he wasn't getting caught with flush punches. He was sort of given the impression that he was hurt or he was being ruffled, he was under pressure, and that might work against him. I'm just curious as to whether Quillin does really have the punch to sort of put a dent in him. But Alex, we spoke about Lee Quillin there, obviously, but what do you think about the other fight on the card while you're on? I mean, the Danny Garcia-Lamont Peterson, putting aside the catchweight issues and the belt issues and all this other stuff, do you think it's just a good fight in general, or do you think it's a poor matchup, or how do you see it?
I think it's going to be a bit of a mismatch, to be honest. I think that Peterson, the fights we've seen him, obviously got absolutely splattered by Matisse, and I think that this fight, although it should happen and we should be getting more unifications and we should be waiting around with nonsense fights and tune-ups like we've seen with the Salka fight and whoever it was that Peterson beat before this, we should see these fights more often and just get them out of the way with. I do think Garcia will knock him out, but Garcia hasn't looked very good himself recently. The only fight he's looked good in since Matisse was the Rod Salka fight, and he arguably lost the Herrera fight. So maybe that rematch will happen in the future. I seriously doubt it. But I'd like Peterson to win because I can't stand Garcia. He's a little shitbag. And Peterson, I've got nothing wrong with him. He's cool by my books. So I'd be happy for him to win, but I can't see it. I think he gets knocked Spark out. Probably.
Isn't it a bit of a surprise that we didn't have any Belly of the Week nominations for Angel Garcia? I mean, he used to be non-stop talking leading up to a fight, and this, I don't know, maybe we'll get some this week.
I don't think we will, because it's very much this PBC thing of no one's allowed to say anything or do anything outside the rules. It's like with the belts. I don't know if anyone noticed on the show on Saturday that the WBC belt was out on the ring apron for the Stevenson Beaker fight for 2 rounds, and then someone came and whipped it away. So I think that we obviously don't want the WBC belt on show. There's something about what PBC are doing is they are limiting what fighters are saying and doing on social media and at press conferences, and it's all to protect that image. And I think Angel Garcia, he doesn't really fit the mould. I think he'll be in the corner and he'll be doing his usual stuff, but he won't be there to, racially aggravate everybody for. Do
you think he's been told to shut up then? Basically.
Oh yeah, he's been told to shut up. Broner's been told to shut up. They've all been told what they can and can't say. If they want them to talk and sell the fight, then that's what they'll be told to do. But I think at the moment, you only have to look at the fact that, like I said, their Twitter accounts are now all controlled by a PR company to show just how much what they're saying and doing is being very carefully monitored. When was the last time we saw someone like Broner say or do something really stupid? It's been a while, and normally it was once a week. So I think with Garcia, even Danny, we've not heard a word from Danny Garcia up to the lead up to this fight, or any of them. They don't seem to build up the shows, apart from advertised. I mean, me and Alex were watching the streams from America on Saturday, constant advertisements for the next PBC shows. They're building them up that way, but you're not hearing a lot from the fighters themselves.
That's a good point. And if Al Heyman actually believes that quieting everyone down and having them conform to his sort of beautiful little organized boxing league just tied off with a neat bow, I think he's missing the point of the sport. I mean, missing the randomness and the silliness that is boxing, and by doing that, missing an opportunity, because craziness and trash talk and crap like that sells. So, I mean, I think Angel Garcia's not only did he help sell several of Danny's fights, but I think were it not for him, Danny Garcia wouldn't have gotten that easy knockout over Amir Khan. I think he got under Khan's skin so badly that he just ran in, going for the KO immediately. I mean, that was just idiotic. And I think that was largely thanks to Angel Garcia's pre-fight talk.
Mm-hmm. See the thing with Angel Garcia, that this isn't actually hype with him. See, after I was over in New York, and see, after the first press conference to announce the Judah fight, this was away for the cameras in the hotel lobby. He was actually trolling Zab Judah big time in that. I've never seen anything like this before in my life. Zab absolutely fucking flipped and tried to attack on me, and the Angel just standing back laughing at the guy. He was a big Rami and blah blah blah. But he's genuinely like that. That isn't an act with him. I think see with Adrian Broner, it's an act to him, but Angel's, he's like that, you know, that's the guy he is.
The side effects of being a meth head in younger days.
I think the guy's fine.
I think that is definitely watering the sport down, isn't it? And they might get Anthony Joshua's PR team on the go. You could have Adrian Broner soon starting to send out tweets like, it's all about hard work and dedication. Although I doubt it. Wouldn't have thought so. Any other business, chaps, before we wrap it up?
Don't think so.
I'll take that as a no. And I'll just extend my thanks, and I suppose, to everybody who's still with us. Adam Smith, thank you for jumping on and joining us. Alex Morris, Tommy Allen, Paul Webb and David Loback. Kurt Ward was with us earlier, but he had to jump off early. And thanks to Asif for jumping on and talking about the heavyweight situation as well. And a great thanks to everybody in the Mixler chat. I haven't been reading it yet, but I always go back and read it afterwards because it's so funny. So thanks for everybody for getting involved and just keeping things rolling on. Andy Patterson will be back in the hot seat next week. I'm sure everybody will be glad about that. I know I will. But thanks very much for the last 2 weeks. It's been great fun, and we shall speak to you soon. All the best.
Cheers, Steve. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Go on, Royds.